Hello, everyone. I'm Victor Calisi. I'm Commissioner for People with Disabilities at the Mayor Office here in New York. Welcome, everyone, to the first Disability Unite Festival. We are so excited. We have an amazing program of music, dance, art, talking, gaming, and more. I would like to thank all the people that worked to make the festival happen. The people from New York City Mayor's Office for People with Disabilities, the Disability Community Consortium Project, and Access for All. Together with many other partners, we organize a great celebration, and we are doing it in a difficult time. This is a difficult time for our country. It is a time of change, a time of challenge and sadness. But I see people who are trying to make it better. When we work together, we are stronger and we can succeed. This festival is celebrating 30 years of the American with Disabilities Act, the ADA. This important law says what we all know. The ADA says all people are equal and all people must have equal access and opportunities. We are also celebrating 50 years of the organization Disabled in Action, DIA. DIA is an organization for civil rights that started here in New York. Today, we thank the leaders of DIA. These leaders organized many types of protests. They did all that for us to have the accessibility that we have today. We also want to thank our friends in communities of color and LGBTQ community. We thank them because communities that fight for equal rights make each other stronger. The disability rights movement is stronger because of these communities. That is why we thank them and we support them. Since the ADA became a law, there are many changes. We are making a great progress in disability rights in many different areas of life. We are celebrating now, but we also know that there's still a lot of work to be done. The Disability Unite Festival is the time and place to celebrate our community. We celebrate who we are, we celebrate how special and amazing we all are. But at the same time, the festival is also a good opportunity to keep working to make sure that we are all equal. We are now in many different places, but we are still a community. The community is in us. We can see we are part of the same community in the way that we speak, we act, we love, the way that we talk for ourselves, for our friends, for our family and neighbors. As a community, we are even stronger than we think. Together, we change things. We now have many more rights for people with disabilities, but we will continue to fight until every person in this country is included in the community. Every person has the same access. Now enjoy the festival, and next year I hope to see you all here in New York City. Happy Disability Pride Month. Hello everyone, welcome to the first Disability Unite Festival, the best example of everything about us with us. The Disability Unite Festival started as a project of the Disability Community Consortium Project Access for All and the New York City Mayor's Office for People with Disabilities. It started to celebrate 30 years of the American with Disabilities Act. Project Access for All is made of many different people and many organizations, and we all came together to do this. This is a festival for our community, and we are the ones who did it. Of course, we could not do it without the leadership of Victor Calisi, New York City's commissioner. He had a great team. They're helping everybody now with coronavirus pandemic. And we had a call with Jonathan Novick every week. So we had very good communication. And so we, the disability community, we are getting to know each other even better, and we are working together. We can also see how Mayor's Office for People with Disabilities all over the country are working together. Cities are helping each other in these difficult times. This is the good thing about this crisis. We see our community growing, and we are working together with disability groups from many states and even from other countries. Now, it is 30 years for the ADA, but it is also 50 years for Disabled in Action, DIA. It is a big honor for us to have the president of DIA, Jean Ryan, here with us today to open the festival. Disabled in Action is a civil rights organization. DIA works very hard to make sure people with disabilities, people with all disabilities, have equal rights. So they have full equality. Jean, would you like to talk to us? Thank you. We had 50 years of many meetings, many emails. We had fights in court and on the street, and some of us even sat in jail. Matt, you talked about the role of Commissioner Khaleesi in our community. I want to talk about his being on the Metropolitan Transit Authority Board, the MTI, and make decisions about transportation. Commissioner Khaleesi has the ability to do this very important job, and we all support him. From now on, it is important that we always have a seat at the table so people listen to us. And we need to make sure we have good leaders, people that can do things like Commissioner Khaleesi, to make sure that they have the correct positions. I'm excited about Disability Unite for DIA to have the support of thousands of disabled people and non-disabled friends of disabled people gives us power. I agree with you, Jean. Together, we have the power to make the change we need. Now, we hope everyone has a great time in the Disability Unite Festival. We hope that you will join us in fun, friendship, and doing, and help make our community a place of equality and access for all, including people with disabilities.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Disability Films Transforming the Entertainment Industry panel as part of Disability Unite. And I am Isaac Zablocki. I'm the director and co-founder of the Real Abilities Film Festival. Check us out at realabilities.org. That's REEL. And I'm very excited to introduce, I am a white, very pale male with a receding hairline. I am very pleased to introduce our panel, and I'll have them each tell us a little bit about yourselves and what you do. And if you can also describe yourself as you introduce yourself. And I'm going to start with Shannon DeVito. Shannon, thank you so much for being here.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. My name is Shannon DeVito, and I am a woman in a wheelchair with long hair and glasses and probably look very awkward. I am a comedian and actress and a singer. I don't know, whatever anyone asks me to do, I'll probably do it. I've been on some TV shows, and I'm in a movie that was supposed to be at South by Southwest this year, but maybe next year. Who knows? We're in a pandemic. And yeah, I'm really excited to be here.
Thank you very much. And I'm going to move on to Steve Way. Steve.
Hey, I'm Steve Way. 29 years old. You can see me on the show Rami on Hulu. I'm a white guy in a motorized wheelchair. I do have a receding hairline. Wear glasses, and I got a ventilator mask on my nose.
Anything else you want to share about what you do?
I'm a stand-up comedian. Shannon and I actually did a stand-up show last year, a monthly show at the Pit in New York. I've been doing stand-up for almost 10 years now. I'm an actor, and I'm also developing a show with Apple TV+.
Excellent. Lolo, you're up next. Lolo, hi.
Hi, I'm Lauren Lolo Spencer. I'm a Black woman who's a wheelchair user who currently has braids, but you know, the hairstyle always changes. I'm an actress, model, I use the term disability lifestyle influencer, where essentially I just create content about disability lifestyle and how people with disabilities can live their life independently and fruitfully and as fun as we want it to be. I starred in a film called To Give Me Liberty, which premiered at Sundance and the Cannes Film Festivals, and was also nominated for an Independent Spirit Award for Best Supporting Actress.
That's amazing. And Give Me Liberty is a great example of films. This is a support its accessibility and its release. And it's a film that I think is just like a broad-reaching, independent, very independent. But can you tell us a little bit about your character there?
Yeah, so my character is Tracy Holmes. She is essentially like a social worker where she assists people with disabilities who work at this place called the Eisenhower Center in Milwaukee. And she helps them get jobs and apartments and that kind of thing. But on this particular day in the film, she's not all the way the nicest girl on the block, but it's all for good reason. But she's really a really headstrong woman, very determined, doesn't let anything get in her way. She doesn't let any BS fly. And but ultimately she has a heart of gold. And yeah, and that's Tracy.
So one of the things that I love about your character is, yes, you're a complex character who's not always perfect, not always great, not always evil. You're I think your character in that film has a lot of depth. You're also the love interest, which,
Yeah.
you are like just one more character who's riding in the back of the van throughout the film, or throughout most of the film.
Yeah.
And who's just one of the characters who's there. And the fact that you're in a wheelchair is not, it's not crucial to the character or to the story. You just happen to be in a wheelchair too.
Exactly. And that was one of the reasons why I chose to do it, especially have never having any acting experience prior to Give Me Liberty. So, but I felt like it was important to take advantage of the opportunity to play a role that was exactly like you said, where she just so happened to be a wheelchair user. It wasn't about her wheelchair and her life and why it's so hard because of her wheelchair. It's like, no, life is just what it is, and she's going through it just like anybody else is. And so that was crucial to me choosing to kind of take that leap of faith of knowing that I've never acted before, but was like, I'm going to do this role, because very rarely do you even get an opportunity to play something like this. So I'm glad I did.
Amazing. And I want to also point out that in that film, for those who haven't seen it, and if you haven't, I'm sure it's online at this point, but the fact that you're in a wheelchair is not the dramatic turning point, is not the dramatic element within the film. It's like anyone else who's in a film, and it's not like, oh, but she's in a wheelchair and let's make this episode about that. It is about your character and who you are. And I thought that was really, and of course, the wheelchair fit in perfectly. There was a reason why you were on an accessible vehicle.
Exactly. It was really amazing. And it was very, very important for me to take advantage of that opportunity. And then for the filmmakers to have been open to my notes about authenticity with regards to being Black, with regards to having a disability, all was crucial in making sure that, the film was done right. And it's important because when you're on set, a lot of the times you feel like you can't speak up for yourself because you don't want to come off like you're not able to do the job, or you're complaining about something, or you're switching the story up because you want to be authentic to the character and how they experience their life, because you experience it in real life. So the fact that they were just so open to the notes was also like a major selling point.
Amazing to hear. Steve, let me jump in for a minute to, you're best known for Rami, which is a Golden Globe winning show, and really one of the shows that's most celebrates, I feel, diversity these days, and it gets a lot of praise for that. Tell us a little bit about how, first of all, you got the role, and how is there awareness? I mean, I think there's a lot of reality to your role. Is there awareness to the fact that this show is really pushing the envelope for mainstream viewers?
Yeah, well, I got the role mostly because Rami has been my best friend of 20 years. So that definitely helped. He was definitely a big advocate, but I still had to audition for my own role. Basically, Rami wrote my parts, showed it to Hulu, my stand-up comedy, my web series I did, a couple videos I did. And the first thing they asked was, great, who's going to play Steve? So Rami had to really convince them to allow me to play myself. But I think, after really just seeing me on camera, they understand that, I am good enough. As for the whole show, like I said, me and Rami have been friends for a while. We've been making videos for about half of our lives now. And I think that gives us a kind of level of comfort with each other where, we can trust each other in a way where we want to have that with other actors on the show. So we aren't afraid to really push the envelope with what you see on screen. I think if anyone's going to do it, it's going to be us, just because we are so comfortable with it and each other. I have no problem being vulnerable and kind of showing the dark side to the disabled community, or just my life in general. So I mean, I enjoy it. I really do. Like I said, if anyone's going to do it, I'm fine being that guy.
And let me just ask if I mean, Lola mentioned that she was kind of consulted in some ways about her character. Was your character consulted on too?
Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
As far as are you sitting there with Rami developing the scripts at all? Are you talking about
Yes.
details?
Yes, Rami was very meticulous with my role. Whenever he wrote a scene for me, he would go through it pretty much line by line and make sure that everything was specific to Steve the person. Because the one thing I really like about Rami's show is that it's so authentic and it's very specific to him. He's telling a Muslim story, but he's telling his Muslim story. Sure, that can be universal, but the finer details are specific to him. And he really makes it a point to do that with me, too.
You bring up an important point that I want to bring up later in our conversation. The fact, the diversity within the disability community and the need for the authenticity of that diversity is also something that I hope we dive into in this conversation, which I haven't even fully introduced yet, but I really wanted to go one by one first and hear a little bit from each of our panelists about their experiences as kind of background for a deeper topic that I want to jump into. And I'm going to go over to Shannon now. Shannon, I want to focus on one character that you've played that I see you all over the place, but your character in Mean People is one that is fascinating. Sorry. difficult people.
That's okay. They are mean, but
They are
they're
mean and difficult, but they would make it a different show. um, I thought it was a groundbreaking portrayal of disabilities for, again, somewhat mainstream television. Often people with disabilities, once again, are depicted either as victims or heroes. And you are, since I was thinking that the name of the show was Mean People and not Difficult People, I was thinking you are meaner than anyone else on the show there, and everyone's pretty
Thank
mean on the show. You tell us about your role there, how that came about, and tell just the audience, for those who are not familiar, a little bit about that role.
Sure. So I got an audition, 4 or 5 years ago now at this point, for this 2-line role where I talk about where I'm a beat poet talking about my uncle molesting me. And I got the role. It was not written for a person with a disability. It was just a role. And I got it, which I was so grateful for. And it was so fun. And I got on set and I was like, I had to improvise a lot, which was insanely fun. And I guess they liked what I did. And so they kept having me back, and just wrote this crazy character who is combative with Julie Klausner is the lead of Difficult People. And she's very combative with that character. And it's just, we just had a lot of fun. And yeah, I mean, when Julie was writing it, she said that she added it in, like she made sure that like we had like jokes about it, but like it was never about me being in a chair. It was about us hating each other and being, rivals on a lot of levels. So, but she didn't also shy away from any of those jokes. And I love doing them because I think they're ridiculous. And anytime you can kind of use comedy to break that wall of fear with disability, it's really important. So, I was really, really grateful to be part of that show, and really grateful to Julie and everyone that created that show to kind of think outside the box when originally casting me and kind of going from there.
Yeah, I really want to applaud a team. Unfortunately, it deserves applaud. It should be the norm, but that casting. This is something to point out to all casting directors out there that you can cast somebody. The person with a disability doesn't have to play a specific role that was written for a disability. You can cast someone for absolutely anything, and the disability might just add to it. And I really applaud the way they took your character on in Difficult People and kind of let it actually lead. I'll ask once again what I've asked the others. What part did you play in that? And you mentioned you improvised a little bit, but were you really like consulted on like some of the jokes, like when are you going too far? When is this okay? Or did they just kind of like hand you the script?
No, they kind of just handed it to me and went, go to town. And I was like, all right. But in the first season, I just had those 2 lines and then I improvised a lot. So that was kind of like a weird, different thing. But I think later on, Julie and I got to know each other a little bit better. And so she kind of wrote knowing me a little bit more, but she also, I trust her with my life. So she could have written anything and I would have trusted that she knew what the boundaries were. And that show was very, very good at pushing boundaries. And I think that like my character kind of just fit into that world very easily because it was all about kind of just seeing how far we could go with how terrible everybody was. And so yeah, it just really fit into that world very easily. And but yeah, no, I wasn't ever consulted, which is great because I'd rather just like know that they're gonna do what they think. And I think like with comedy, it's a little bit different too. Like, with dramatic stuff, it can always get into that weird, like, is this going to be a sad character kind of situation? But I think that like with comedy and especially with ones that are trying to push boundaries, you can kind of like, you can really take on some different just different points of views, which is great. I don't know if that really answered your question. I apologize. The answer was no.
No and yes. But this brings me to like our main point of the conversation, which is that right now I feel that there's a little bit of a revolution going on. We are far from getting there and far from perfect. But if you look at how much more is being produced, and I know that people with disabilities, we still represent only about 2% of people that are featured on mainstream television and media, but much, much lower than we should be. But I feel like things are starting to pick up as someone who curates or helps curate a festival on disability films. I'm seeing the quality of the submissions that are coming to us growing higher. I'm seeing a lot of films that are going beyond us diving straight into the mainstream. We have TV shows. We have films that are featured at Sundance. Are you guys feeling that at all? And feel free to disagree. And I do want to discuss on the second level of this of where have you felt things, I don't want to paint a perfect picture, where have you felt that things have gone wrong in the past and are possibly still going wrong? Shannon, I'm going to start with you this time.
Oh man.
What's been going on? Have you been feeling this? Are you getting more casting calls than ever?
I'm very lucky to have a team that does send me out on stuff. The past 3 things that I've auditioned for have not been disabled roles, which is really, really nice. They were just comedy roles. And so that was a really nice change. But it's a hard question to answer right at this very second because everything is very weird. And I don't really know, production is weird and things that were supposed to go into production aren't really casting right now. And so, before the pandemic, I would say, it was kind of about the same, but I think the revolution that we're experiencing now and seeing the kind of cosmic change that has been going on during this pandemic has really kind of broadened people's horizons a little bit, which is really nice to see. And I hope that that's going to be across the board with all diversity and that people are going to kind of realize that the momentum and the change needs to happen for everyone. And but yeah, I think there is still room to grow, and I think that there's still hesitation when actually casting. I think, you can have people come in for calls, but I think at the end of the day, they're still not totally casting the way that they should. I mean, you still see things come out that are films with 3 guys who are disabled characters who are non-disabled actors. And, you still see that stuff every single day. And it's so frustrating to look at, knowing that you're looking at 3 people who are more than qualified to take on those roles. I mean, I'm not going to play a 20-year-old man, but you know what I mean. So I think, that stuff is still happening on the regular. And it is, I'm hoping that as we kind of move forward in this kind of new revolution of inclusion, that we address kind of that stuff.
Fabulous. I do want to know, yes, I was speaking about this revolution going on pre-pandemic, of course, then our world turned upside down, and we are in, who knows where this will all lead to, and maybe everything has changed, but it started as a good year. And then went someone else. I don't know where it went. Steve, what are your thoughts here as far as now there being more roles available for people with disability in films up until now, and that there being more diversity? I think Rami in general speaks as a show, as we mentioned before, that not only talks about diversity as far as its inclusion of a person with a disability in a main role, but also in the fact that it's about a very specific Muslim character.
Yeah, we're definitely making progress. I think the evidence can prove that, but like Shannon said, we still have a long way to go. If in the year 2020, a movie that features 3 non-disabled actors playing disabled roles is coming out, that's horrible. But again, through that, 5 years ago, would I have had the opportunity to develop a show with Apple? Probably not. But the fact that I was given this opportunity on Rami, and I am able to prove myself and show that people with disabilities in general are good performers. We're obviously going in the right direction, but it's frustrating that we still have these really, really bad examples of representation, and it's so great to see a show like The Simpsons, who they're now getting rid of all their white voice actors for non-white characters. But why can't we do that for disability too? And it's also really, really unfortunate that it took an innocent man being murdered by the police to have that conversation. So what's it going to take for us to have that conversation about disability?
You bring up a very tough topic that yes, we will explore in further depth in a moment. But I want to pass things on also to Lolo as far as your experience. Are you seeing more opportunities now? You're connecting back to what Steve just brought up. There's also specifically, your film actually brought in. Of course, it takes place during one day and one night, and actually includes a demonstration in Milwaukee, and connects back to this. Were those dots connected? That diversity is diversity is diversity.
You're saying, at least with reference to Give Me Liberty specifically?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that was definitely the goal for the filmmakers, was to make a story about humanity. They just wanted to really just show that people are people and everyone has common threads, no matter background, race, gender, or anything like that, ability, any of those things. Everyone has a through line. So yeah, I mean, were they intentionally trying to be diverse? From my perspective, I don't think they were intentionally like, we have to make a movie about diversity. They just wanted to make a movie about people and create this story, and who they casted was who they wanted to cast. And that was one of the things that I thought was very important, because especially when it comes to disability, I just felt like Give Me Liberty really proved that your story and your character development doesn't have to be compromised or changed because you want to cast a person with a disability in that role. Like, human is human regardless. We all have very similar experiences and have very relatable things within each other. So I just thought that was important to show that it was possible, and that you don't have to scream diversity in order to tell a common story. You just cast the right actors in a sense, unless it's like super specific and you need it to be specific, then yeah, that makes sense. But for the most part, like, a majority of stories that are told are very just human, relatable stories. And it's just unfortunate that a lot of the times casting a person with a disability in a human role isn't ever considered, because again, society has never really viewed us as being, who we are as people first. we just so happen to have disabilities next.
So right now, let's say the pandemic ends soon, and we're back into a real world. And yes, let's all make it through all of this. And can we? What are some of the things that you feel still needs to be done in the I guess media industry, in our industry? What are the things that still need to be done that you think, okay, here we're in 2020, and you've mentioned already that they're still producing movies with 3 main characters. We haven't mentioned the name of people with disabilities. One that recently came out with people with a remake. Let me point out a remake possibly of a film.
Wait, really?
We're talking about the same film. Yeah, it's a remake of a European film.
Oh, come on.
And the title to me, I think, is offensive too, given who they casted. But again, that's a different topic.
Which one? Sorry, say again.
No, I'm just saying the movie that we're all referencing, I just think the title is very offensive, given who they casted in those roles. It's like, but again, I'll keep those thoughts to myself.
I don't know which movie you're talking about. No, but I too, of course, hear the buzz about the different films, and in Real Abilities in our selection process, we are constantly debating this of like where those lines are of authentic casting. And we by the way have a whole spectrum of people who take different approaches to how to cast authentically. The most important thing I would say is always to cast responsibly and to not be completely tone deaf when you're casting. And yet we'll see. I don't know if any of you think that there's wiggle room in certain roles. But now in 2020. What could this industry be doing better to be more inclusive? Steve, let me start with you.
Let me start by saying, watch out the movie Come As You Are. That's what we're talking about. Don't see it, because the only reason, or the only way that those movies will stop being made is if people stop seeing them. So break the cycle and stop seeing those movies.
Steve, now they're all going to see it. You mentioned the name.
Oh, don't see it. It goes so much deeper than just disabled actors. It starts off in the casting room with the casting director who might have certain biases towards people with disabilities. Whether they think they're not good enough or whether they can't film for an entire day or whatever it is. And then it goes up to the writers, who write their perceptions of disabled people. That's how we end up with the end of The Theory of Everything, where Stephen Hawking gets up out of his wheelchair and walks. Because these people think that that's all we do, is that we daydream about watching. It goes to the directors who won't give any accommodations to disabled actors, or who won't really believe in them and won't do anything to help unlock their full potential. So really, I think it's every facet of the entire industry.
Shannon, did you have more to add to that? Steve said basically everything still needs to change. Are there specifics that you feel passionate about?
I don't think that he's not wrong. But I do think that it also comes with allowing us to tell our own stories. I think that if you give a production deal to a person with a disability, or you have a director who's disabled, or I think that I feel very lucky to have had the roles that I have had, but most of the roles that I have gotten were because I knew the people that were associated with it. So with Delco Prepper, they wrote the role for me, and Insatiable, they wrote the role for me, and it takes people on that end who are writing it and know you, and you also have, like, if you have a person with disability in the writer's room, like the work is going to be different. And I think that what Steve is saying, where there's certain biases on the other side with non-disabled people kind of running everything, which is true. And you need to give more opportunities. I mean, there's so many incredible directors. There's so many incredible writers out there with disabilities who just aren't given the opportunities that, we focus so much on in front of the camera, which is important. But, we really also have to focus our attention towards really training and helping the people behind the camera. Like, I don't know that I would know how to be a DP on a film, because I don't know that I don't know if I could run a camera. Like, these are all things that, like, maybe I could if we were given the proper training, but we're not given these opportunities. So we don't know what our, we all think that we're so limited, but maybe we're not, I just think that you need to really encourage all behind the scenes things to be inclusive as well.
I can't emphasize that enough. I think I think this is a crucial part of the creative process. I think, especially in the writer's room where it starts, I think writing authentically is as important as casting authentically, and possibly more so. And it really that will, the writing will often set the tone for the character. Of course, actors will take it in other directions, and maybe it's good to keep things authentic throughout, but it's definitely something that doesn't get emphasized enough. And behind the scenes, I mean, crews should be 20% people with disabilities. And that's how people get opportunities too. You're right. If somebody is at first a production assistant, if you hire a production assistant with a disability, they will get set experience, which is the only way. Anybody who's ever worked on a set knows you need, the X amount of hours on a set to really begin to develop that comfort and understand what this world is, and then to have opportunities, because you will not have that same level of professionalism without that level of comfort. Lilo, did you want to add to that?
No, I think what Steve and Shannon said was right on the nose. I was going to say the exact same thing, which is like, it's behind the camera. It's opening up the opportunity. And I think even to break it down even further is just the social construct of understanding disability as a lifestyle. Like, that's, I think, ultimately what it also boils down to, is that knowing that people with disabilities stories are their stories, but they're not so far-fetched from the understanding of the rest of the world, if that makes sense. Like, again, I feel like our stories, our experiences are equally relatable. It's just, you just go through it differently. So I think there's just even taking that initial step further to say, understand that people with disabilities are people first. Like, just like really grasp that we're people first. And I think the intimidation or the fear of not knowing or whatever the case is will start to be minimized, because once they recognize, or people, non-disabled people recognize that, hey, there's this whole group of people that are just getting around the way they get around, and that's pretty much it. Like, so I think there's even that level of recognition that has to happen first, is understanding that the humanity within who we are.
And I think ultimately with what you're saying, that actually the films and the TV shows will be better, because once you understand humanity and understand that humanity is diverse. It has its unique stories within it, and people are not just these squares that sometimes Hollywood feeds to us. Then actually, I mean, I see this constantly. Authentically casted and authentically made shows and movies are actually much better and much more relatable and more sellable, because actually you could sell them then to anybody.
Exactly.
Well, I heard a story once that I forget the name of the movie, but the woman that was in Game of Thrones. This is really bad. I should probably not bring up this story, but because I don't remember anyone's name. What?
Me before you.
No. Yes, she was also in this movie, but
Wait, she did another one?
Yeah, she was in a Christmas movie. And the point is that she, at the end, has to go through a really bad medical issue. And this woman, I can't blank on her name at the moment, had, she went through a really traumatic thing with her brain. I think she had brain tumors or something like that. But the director was saying that she brought a level of authenticity because she went through this. And I was like, well, that right there is the whole point of what we're trying to say, is that if you go through it, you have a level that you're bringing on camera that is so visible that it just brings out something that you're unaware was even there. And it's not even that, we're not saying that nobody gets what we're going through, but you just have a level of understanding. I'll never know what it's like to be a different race. I just won't. I can listen and I can read and I can understand and try to understand and be a good ally, but I will never understand what it's like to be in that skin. And you can listen and you can have people come in and tell you all about what it's like to be disabled, but you'll never truly understand what it's like to be in that position.
And I think you're referring to the movie Last Christmas.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, with Emilia Clarke.
Yes.
Yes. By the way, Me Before You is on the do not watch list.
Yeah, don't watch that
Very
one.
clear.
Watch Last Christmas. That's fine.
Don't look that up. Me Before You is especially terrible.
Yes, for sure.
But I sent around an article before the article I was reading last week in the New York Times about Hamilton, and specifically this question of colorblind casting. I don't know if anybody's read this article or had an opportunity to read it, but it made me think about, of course, a lot of this in this conversation, where colorblind casting should come in. Should people be just, I cast anybody for any role, and that's how you could get wonderful roles that were not meant for people with disabilities necessarily? Or is there something? Or there's of course a problematic side to it that means that that's an excuse kind of to allow. I'm casting by colorblind, and ultimately will cast the people that I've casted before for the same old roles. Lolo, you want to start with this one?
Yeah, I mean, I think it just really boils down to the story, right? I think if it is a character where race or ability or gender isn't a defining factor to what that character is or who that character is, then cast very colorblindly, per se. But I think if the character specifically calls that out because that's what is the story to be told, then yeah, you have to do the just service to cast authentically. It would be like if you did a movie about Malcolm X or something like that, and then be like, we're going to cast anybody to be Malcolm. Absolutely not. That's what you're not going to do.
Tom Hanks. What do you think? Tom Hanks as Malcolm X.
Yeah. You see, I'm like, no, we're not saying that, because who Malcolm is, what he represents, all of those things, it's necessary to cast a Black man in that role, period. But if we're talking about a doctor who's, the lead doctor of this hospital, and it's about him and his relationships or whatever the case is, then it's like, okay, that's when you can be a little bit more open to the casting process in that way. So I think it really just boils down to the story ultimately.
Steve, did you want to chime in?
Tom has his Malcolm X. That sounds like a nightmare.
Listen,
He would not take the role. Let me be very clear here. He would turn it down. He's a good guy.
Right.
Tom Hanks is an American treasure.
Yes.
Would know that's not his role.
I always like what comedian actress Maysoon Zayid always says. She says, if you don't know, Maysoon is a disabled comedian actress. She's Palestinian with cerebral palsy, and she always says that she cannot play Beyonce. So why can someone like Beyonce play someone like her? And I think to what Lolo said, like if I can play a doctor, sure, but I can't play Tom Hanks. But there is a world in which Tom Hanks could play someone like me. We see that with Eddie Redmayne, with Bryan Cranston. And let's not forget, I think I read last night, like 25 people or 25 actors who have, 25 non-disabled actors who played a disabled character won some kind of major award.
Is that in the last year or?
No, it feels like it. But yeah, and what that article was getting at, something with, like an example like Hamilton. I did that something different because it's telling a story. Because as we all know, Hamilton, it doesn't tell the complete story. It's very sanitized. And it's telling it in such a unique way. And obviously those guys are very long dead. And they weren't the best human beings. Whereas, going to what I said before about The Simpsons, you have a white guy voicing an Indian character, which is very wrong. So yeah, if you're playing a person, like a very specific person, and you're trying to live an experience that you either have not had or you will never have, like I am a straight white male. I cannot play Shannon, and I cannot play Lolo. I will never know what it's like to be a woman. I will never know what it's like to be black. And I will never know what it's like to be a black woman. Those are all three very different experiences and very different stories to tell. But I think it's really important for all of us, and especially someone like me who is in the position to now develop my own show, to elevate those voices so they can tell their own stories. And I don't mean to sound like, the white savior here, but I have to acknowledge that I do have privilege here. It's like, yeah, I am disabled, but again, I'm still a straight white guy. So I think I would be doing the community a disservice if I did not, one, acknowledge that, and two, do my part to make sure that even more diverse stories are told.
That's amazing and so crucial to remember as this it's not just to develop your own career, but to know that to change the industry. And as we are slowly changing, Shannon, did you want to add on to this at all?
I think what they both said is absolutely correct. But I think the one thing that people who say colorblind casting are not really addressing is that the only way that works is in a utopian society where everyone is on an equal plane. So like, yes, if I was going in for every single role the same way that everybody else was going in for every single role, then we could absolutely talk about everybody can play everybody else. That great, let's do it. Let's get into that utopian society. But we're nowhere near that, and we aren't going to be anywhere near that in the near future. So I do think that colorblind casting is important, but I think you also have to address the world that we currently live in. And you can't deny that that's going to not work all the time, because if you go into it with that mentality, you could be like, well, all those biases and all that like are going to factor into the way that you cast, whether you believe it or not. So I do think that you need to make sure that you're allowing diverse casting and diverse inclusion, because that soul mentality of colorblind casting is not really going to work if you don't address all the underlying things that are currently going on in our society.
For sure. We need to level that playing field. We're far, far from it. I unfortunately think, too, that with all the progress, it's not going to be leveled in our generation. And it's impossible. And I think we possibly then it could be revisited once the playing field is really leveled and everyone has the same opportunities to reach this in the same way, all the roles, all the different characters, and then maybe things can be changed. But for right now, we're very far from it. I wanted to, since we are, there's a lot more to discuss here, but we're a little bit short for time, and I wanted to hear about how if in any way new projects have been coming your way, and how the success of your past projects has led you to a certain level of recognition. Are you feeling it? Are you feeling that that you're being recognized as you walk down the street? Shannon, I see you on on ads for something. I've seen you on
for like a healthcare ad.
Say again?
It's like a healthcare ad or something.
It was a healthcare ad. That's right. I saw you every morning as I left my house.
I'm very grateful for that work, but that picture is something.
Well, it's getting your face out there, that's for sure. And Shannon, specifically, tell us a little bit, Best Summer Ever, which hasn't come out yet, so we could talk about this as a future project, which is the first musical that I think is, as far as its work with the disability community, is extremely unique. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Best Summer Ever is a kind of a farcical teen rom-com musical parody of itself. I'm not really sure. It's we kind of describe it all different ways, but it was made with an all-inclusive crew and cast, and it is the first one that I know of that features people with disabilities in a musical on screen. And there's a lot of people behind the scenes as well that are disabled. And it was just the movie is not about disability in any way, shape, or form. It's just about these two people who fall in love and kind of their story. And it's really fun and ridiculous. And I think that it's a really important thing for people to see, that it's just, you can be as ridiculous and fun and sing and do everything else that everybody else can. And I'm excited for people to see it. I mean, it's ridiculous. I would just want to put that out there. But it's it definitely
beautifully produced, I will note. Beautifully.
Oh, what?
it's beautifully produced.
It's gorgeous. Michael
production.
Parkranda is an incredible director, and he just created this thing that is absolutely gorgeous and makes me look way better than I do in real life. I also play a 16-year-old, which okay. But I
speaking of colorblind casting, right?
What?
Colorblind casting.
Yeah, for sure. I'm old. But yeah, it's great. I'm really excited for people to see it, and I hope that people do.
And what else are you working on? What else is in the pipeline? I know, hopefully, that once our industries wake up a little bit. But what are you looking forward to?
Yeah, I have a couple projects that I'm working on. Nothing's really solidified right now. It kind of all is up in the air. But yeah, I'm writing a bunch of stuff. I have some videos that I'm going to be putting out, and yeah, we'll see. There's nothing really I can talk about because it's all kind of like put on hold.
Do you have a hashtag or a website that people should be checking out?
Yeah, you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter. My handle is at Shannon DeVito on both of them because I'm very creative. And you can look me up on YouTube under the same name. Again, very creative.
Lolo, what are you working on? What's coming up for you?
I definitely have more like modeling projects coming out. Can't talk about it yet, but some stuff is coming out for sure. I've really been spending this time during quarantine working on my own scripted series. I've never written before, but I never acted before, and look where it took me. So I'm going, I'm trying in that way, because very similar to what we talked about earlier was like, we have to be behind the camera and telling our stories if we want our stories to be seen. So I've definitely been working on my own scripted series. As far as other projects, I started an interview talk show on my IGTV called The New Narrative, where I interview fellow people with disabilities who are creating a new narrative about what disability lifestyle is all about and how they're doing it, whether it's through acting or writing or modeling or entrepreneurship or any of those different things. And we just talk about that to really showcase those stories and tell people and show people that our lives are equally successful and beautiful and amazing as anybody else's. So I have that on IGTV, there will also be a podcast version of that coming out very soon of each interview. And then, just continuing to do my Instagram, auditioning when I can, whenever they tell us that we can, and that kind of thing. As far as social media, you can follow me on Instagram at It's Lolo Love, ITSLOLOLOVE. And then you can subscribe to my YouTube channel called Sitting Pretty, which is where I also am continuing to upload videos and content about disability lifestyle there.
Fantastic. Covered it all. Steve, we know that you're working on something for Apple TV. Tell us what else is going on.
Well, I started therapy during quarantine, so that's nice. That helped.
All done? Worked?
Yeah, pretty much. Every Thursday, 8:00 Eastern, on my Instagram, a friend of mine and I we are reviewing Kanye West's entire discography. So turn into that. That's fun. I'm hoping to start up an interview series soon on Instagram as well. I'm not sure yet. I'm just bored. I got to give myself something to do. I can't wait to get back to doing stand-up. I've been doing it on Zoom a couple times. And I don't like it. It's really weird. I need an audience. I also don't like it because on Zoom, it's really accessible. So when I do stand-up on Zoom, I get like 20 or 30 people. And that's too many. Because when I do stand-up in person, I'm used to like 5 people. And I'm really comfortable with that. I'm more comfortable with like 4, 5, 6 people. So really hoping to get back into that soon. Yeah, check out my website, thesteveway.com. Instagram, Twitter at thesteveway. It's my name with the word "the" in front of it. Means like Shannon, I'm very creative.
Somebody else had steveway.com. Is that what happened?
Well, ironically enough, there is another well-known Steve Way. He's a long-distance marathon runner, so we get confused a lot. So I had to put the word "the" in front of it.
And he has a better pun with the whole way thing, I guess. Okay.
Right, yeah.
Great. Thank you. Don't worry about doing stand-up on Zoom. I promise you half the people that are signed in are not really listening. So you could just treat it like it's the normal 5 people. I want to, first of all, thank you all for being a part of this, and it's amazing to have you here. You do fantastic work and have really elevated our entire industry. I also want to mention partners who are doing work in the industry like Respectability and the Ruderman Foundation, who are other organizations that work in this field, and mainstream organizations like even the Sundance Institute, who are working for better inclusion and more diversity, and I think have had already a major impact. And we've come a long way, have a long way to go, but it's really great to celebrate this. The most important thing that I'll mention is, of course, this industry, and I'm saying this to the audience to make sure that this industry is often an industry where life mimics art. And if people don't see people with disabilities in media, they won't see it in the workplace, in the mainstream. They'll think that this is something that cannot exist. And I think that's why we have to start the revolution here. I want to thank you all. Please check out realabilities.org for more about our organization, and enjoy the rest of the Disability Unite program and celebrate ADA at 30. Thank you very much.
Hello again, everyone. Matt Axel here. I am a white man with black hair wearing a reddish colored shirt. And wow, thank you, Isaac. And thank you, Shannon, Steve, and Lolo. That was amazing. Personally, I always think it's so interesting to see a movie or a TV show and then hear what you, the actors, are thinking and like where the performance are coming from. So I really enjoyed that. Thank you. The entertainment industry is such a powerful form of communication for our society. So what you four are doing to transform the stigma behind disability is just, I mean, I'm in awe. I'm not sure how anyone will top that, but our upcoming panel has a rock star lineup that I know will give you a run for your money. Plus, they're talking about a topic that I love. Coming up, explore accessibility in gaming and how, through gaming, our next panelists are advancing inclusion for all.
Well, hello everyone. Welcome to this panel on inclusion through gaming. My name is Ian. I'm going to be hosting the panel. I am an accessibility specialist. I've been doing that for about 13 years now, working with studios, platforms, publishers, that kind of thing, trying to raise the bar for inclusion of people with disabilities in gaming. And I am a 40-year-old male with short dark hair. I'm wearing a black and white hoodie. So Karen, do you want to introduce yourself?
Oh, sorry, I had to wait for the captioning. I'm Karen Stevens. I'm EA Sports Accessibility Lead. Although I do work with the entire company for Electronic Arts. I am a 40-year-old white woman with long brown hair with a small dog on my lap, who is on my lap to remain quiet. The joys of COVID. I'm wearing a gray shirt, and I think that's it. Brandon.
Hi, I'm Brandon Zahan, a Gaming Accessibility Program Manager at Microsoft. I've been working with the community, the disability community, for over 22 years. I've been in the gaming industry 18 years. I am a 40-somethings white male with short brown hair, wearing a Halo Wars hoodie and my gaming and disability advocacy pin.
April?
My name is April Dickerson. I have abilitypower.com. So I blog and YouTube and stream about accessibility and gaming. I've been doing it for about 6 years. I'm a 41-year-old, long brown hair, white woman wearing a black Overwatch t-shirt.
Eric?
Hi guys, I'm Eric Johnson. I'm the Chief Medical Officer for Warfighter Engaged, and I'm an occupational therapist. Actually, my full-time job is I'm an assistant professor at the University of Mary Hardin-Baylor in Texas. And currently I am wearing I'd like to say that I'm in the 20s, but I'm really in the 40s, a 43-year-old male. I have a beard, full head of brown but graying hair, and I have a gray-black shirt on with the Warfighter Engaged logo.
Right, so we got a few nice topics to cover today, but we're going to kick off with a bit of a chat about some of the human impact that accessibility in gaming can bring, specifically gaming's ability to foster connections between people in the community. And I remember this was one of the things that first struck me back in the early days. It was actually one of my first interactions with anything to do with game accessibility was when I was working with kids content, and we had an email come through from a woman who had been playing some of the accessible games that were available on the website with her daughter. And her daughter had really profound both motor and cognitive impairment. And for this woman being able to play this game, she said this was one of the only times in her life with her and her daughter that it actually felt like they were able to have a mother and daughter relationship rather than like a patient care relationship. And that's something that I saw time and time again with the kids stuff as well, just gaming's unique ability to have that kind of connection to allow people to interact with each other on equal terms. But I know certainly with online games in particular, MMOs and stuff, I've seen tons of amazing things about that same ability to bring people together. So I guess we should start with April.
I grew up with spinal muscular atrophy tattoo. So I grew up in a neighborhood full of very sports-loving junior high boys. So every afternoon we would get off the bus and everyone would be, let's play basketball, let's play football. And I would do it. I would go and I would drive my little chair behind them, never caught up with them. But the first time that we really did something that was where, I felt like I was really a part and, on equal ground was when I got a Nintendo. And we would play, video games together. And instead of me, trying to keep up with them, they would be trying to keep up with me. So I was like, okay, I can get into this gaming thing. So that was my first, I guess, experience with gaming being, bringing people together.
So for me,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I thought you were done, so go finish.
Another thing was I'm a guild leader in Warcraft. So seeing all the people in the guild, get to know each other, and they would know the things that I would struggle with in game. And they would be like, oh, you can't, it's hard for you to make this jump. Okay, well, follow my character. And even raiding and things like that would turn into it was more of a group effort, just to make sure we could all get to the content. Disability, no disability. So I think that's one of the big ways that gaming's brought people together.
Okay, now you are done. Okay, just checking. So I'm deaf, so I have to follow the captions, and it's not always easy for me to tell when somebody's done, and I get confused sometimes. So pardon me on that. from my own personal experience, I actually have severe chronic asthma and allergies, and I'm actually not allowed to go outside very much. So when I was a kid, video games were one of the few things I could do. Like, and then the NES came out when I was a kid, so we were able to play Mario Brothers and stuff. And I could have some friends over and play, like, you know, Legend of Zelda and Mega Man 1 and stuff like that. So, which does date me, but it was a way for me to interact with others because I really couldn't go outside very much, and that was very helpful. Now, in terms of what I've seen in general, I've seen gaming is just a way to level the playing field, literally playing field. Like, that's one of my favorite things about working on this, is that I love seeing, like, it's a way to bring families and friends together. It's a way just for people to interact with each other. And one of my favorite things is when we added in some of the first options for the blind for Madden. I had somebody come in from the community to play it on site and with other gamers, and it was just, someone's like, I haven't been able to play Madden in like over a dozen years, and this is amazing. I can actually play it again, because they weren't able to play since they lost their sight, and that's heartwarming. That's wonderful. It was also fun to have them beat the entire Madden team at playing Mortal Kombat. That was wonderful too. I'm like, hey, pick a game. We're gonna have you play with the rest of the studio, and it can be any game you want. And so it's really hard to say that, oh, you know, blind people can't play games and they're beating you. And it was great. It was just a great way for the team to see, and it's really helped explain how the connection really truly matters, and that gaming is for everyone. Gaming should be for everyone, and accessibility really matters to make that happen.
Random.
Oh, it was so funny when you told the Warcraft story, because I won't lie, I lost a good year of my life to that game. I say lost, though, it was actually really helpful for me, because I was, at the time, I was in an area where I didn't have a lot of friends, didn't have a lot of connections, feeling really lonely. And so I started playing that game, and all of a sudden I made this huge family, this guild of people. And I remember it just so happened that one of those individuals lived in my area, relatively close, you know, probably a 30-minute drive. And she had very severe fibromyalgia, to the point where she really only ever left her home for you know, for when it was an absolute necessity, right? So she had been playing Warcraft a lot longer than I had, and it really was a way for her to stay connected and to have a social life and to make friends. And yeah, you know, I've seen that time and time again in our industry, where people have told me how they've made connections to people, you know, whether they met a friend who lives halfway across the world, or it was an opportunity for a parent to find a way to bond with their child. You know, there are some really cool abilities to socially connect. At the same time, the feeling of exclusion in April, your comment about it really, it was really powerful and hit home. The exclusion, that feeling of exclusion when you can't participate, is so heartbreaking. I spent a little over 3 years volunteering at Seattle Children's Hospital. And, you know, I was working at Xbox at the time, and, you know, most of the kids thought I was pretty darn cool, because, you know, back in the day, we used to have the business cards, and it had, you know, like the Halo, you know, Master Chief on the back, or you know, at that time it was Project Gotham Racing, you know, it had the logos there. And whenever I had a kid who was like, you know, I had to, you know, wasn't really wanting to engage with me, I always dropped the fact that, oh yeah, you know, I work on video games. So I'm like, whoa, what? And, you know, I'd show them the back of the business card. They'd be like, that's sick, you know, and we'd start talking. But I do remember, like, the first time it really hit home, and honestly, this was the moment that I really thought about game accessibility, was when I had a young patient who was really in a bad place emotionally and mentally, and I was just talking to her, and I tried that same old trick of, hey, you know, I work in video games. You want to play some video games? And her comment was no, and I was like, oh, really? Why? She's like, and her exact words to me were, you don't make video games I can play. And it hadn't even hit me the fact that the disabilities she faced prevented her from playing video games. She had both a combination of some visible and invisible disabilities that just, you know, that made that not a reality. And you could just tell by the tone in her voice and the look on her face how frustrating she was, and honestly I think a little angry at us, and I think rightfully so. I mean, rightfully so for us not having thought about it at that time. And you have to understand, this is like back in like the mid 2000s, right? So accessibility and game accessibility wasn't where it was. So I think that was the point when I realized, like, I think all of us have gone through that feeling of exclusion at some point, whether it was not being picked for the team, or friends or people you want to be friends with maybe ignoring you or leaving you out. Whatever those feelings are, no one likes that feeling of exclusion. And I think that's when it really hit me that, like, we got to make a change in the industry. Like, we've got to do something to make this better for folks in our community.
Yeah, I think that's something that people often don't realize, the actual like cultural and societal impact of that. Of not just like, okay, I can't play this game, but actually here is like a huge part of our culture, of our society, that is telling me that I'm not welcome.
Yeah, you know what's interesting is when we released I say we, everybody who worked on the Xbox Adaptive Controller, when we did the press release for that, one of the questions they asked is like, why now? You know, why are we doing this now? And you know, I responded saying that I think it's the right time in history to introduce it, because people get it now. If we try to do it back in the early 2000s or the 90s, you know, it wouldn't have been something that people cared about. And I think right now, because there is some good in being culturally sensitive, being understanding that if we're not intentionally including, we're unintentionally excluding, that it really comes home to say, I need to make sure that my efforts as a large corporation in the industry includes being able to be accessible and inclusive. And I think Microsoft really pulled that in and took and ran with that. So in my industry, and you know, as we're talking about the social impact and being able to game with people, you know, I was in the Army for 20 years, and part of that was working with military service members, which I still do. You know, we would be overseas and we would play, you know, these different types of games like Call of Duty or Halos or whatever. And, you know, coming back home, you know, we know that military mental health issues are a big problem right now. So being able to jump online and to connect with a buddy that's maybe having some depression, you know, issues, you know, I can easily get on with a game, get back to that kind of space where we felt comfort in each other, work on that psychosocial deficit that he may be experiencing, and then start talking in that space. You know, it's a free place to say, hey, how are you doing, by the way? Like, what's been going on? Tell me some good things. You know, tell me some good things in your life. And the medium is gaming. You know, there's so much a big depth into mental well-being when we're talking about gaming, and I think it all comes down to, you know, that mental health well-being is what we're talking about.
Yeah, I guess that some of what you're saying kind of leads into the next topic about kind of the broader effort and where we are culturally and technologically as well at the moment, which is kind of how accessibility efforts within gaming can actually broaden out and influence other areas of life as well. And even just hot off the press, The Last of Us 2 came out a couple of weeks ago, I think now. And literally within like 2 days of that game having come out, there was a tweet from an e-commerce platform saying that they'd actually changed the way that they do their code highlighting to make their web platform more accessible to disabled web developers through seeing that innovation in the games industry and porting it straight across. And I think there's huge potential for that because of what game studios are. You know, you've got potentially in some companies teams of hundreds and hundreds of people all of whom are really talented, creative problem solvers. With that kind of creative and technological expertise and energy being directed towards accessibility, I think the games industry has got really quite unparalleled potential for benefiting the wider world in general. Brannon, do you want to kick us off on this one?
Yeah, it's just so funny because, I was one of the team members who worked on the original Microsoft Kinect. And, at the time working on that project, it was so, so new in space age. Whoa, you can like just move and move your body and the game's going to react. And at the time I wasn't working on it from an accessibility perspective. I was working on it from more of a program management testing perspective. And I remember how many people started reaching out going, when we started, announcing what it was about, giving teasers and hints and talking about it, I started hearing from the community in droves, people going, wait a second, like, I don't have fine motor control, but I've got gross motor, really good gross motor coordination. I can use, this is going to let me play video games. And I was like, yeah, I guess it will. And so then we had to start thinking about things like, people in wheelchairs and, what happens if you only have one limb? And, we went down that route. But to your point about taking that technology forward, I think we're all aware here that, Kinect isn't, for Xbox at least, isn't really a thing anymore. And there's a lot of reasons for that in terms of, I think, some paradigms around how we thought people would want to use the technology that weren't maybe necessarily correct. But what I will say is that step forward with Kinect's still a thing. We now have it Kinect for Azure. There was a boom in companies exploring 3D camera technology and depth sensing and skeletal tracking. And I know there's at least one company right now that I've worked with quite a bit out of Spain that is doing some really great work with using that camera technology for rehabilitation and making rehabilitation both easier, more enjoyable, and something that can be more easily done remotely. So I think gaming tends to be a space where we're allowed to explore, right? We explore cool new technologies. I know about things, people exploring new AI tech, ML tech. For those who aren't in the know, artificial intelligence and machine learning, right? And it's cool because it's okay to be innovative and kind of cutting edge in this space. And so I think there's a lot of opportunity for us to take the learnings and the tech that we're building here with accessibility in mind. With Kinect, I'll be honest, it was an accident. But if we're purposeful in thinking about being really innovative with accessibility in the gaming space, I think it's very easy to see that translating out into the much broader technology, into the world of technology, and ultimately into physical spaces and into other types of social interactions and the like.
Well, we've got a concrete example sat right
Ian,
there.
I think you were muted.
Am I muted?
No, what was that, Ian?
Yeah, I was saying there is a concrete example of that happening.
Is
right
Ian muted?
You.
I can't hear anything anymore.
From any of us?
I can hear relatively
speaking.
Yeah,
I can hear.
I've lost all my audio.
Oh no.
Okay.
I have no idea what happened. Literally.
Brandon, I'm going to put something in the chat, but I think we.
I'm going to hang up and call back because I can't hear anything. 1 second. Yeah, I can't hear anyone. Like literally, just the audio stopped. 1 second.
Well, I'll tell you what, Ian. While we're waiting for Brandon to come on, he hit a couple good points that I really like. If you look at this guy, everybody knows this is the Wiimote from the Nintendo Wii, and that came out in 2007. If you guys recall. And so what was interesting, he mentioned being used in rehabilitation. So the Kinect is actually a big part of my treatment process for my patients. And so using already established technology and harnessing it to be able to incorporate it into rehab is a big deal. You know, we saw the use of the Wii because we thought, hey, this little thing has these accelerometers that just movement will end up giving us a ability to engage. So if I don't have a finger or a hand, I can still move around and potentially engage. You know, so when we saw this was great. When we saw the Kinect, it was even better because I worked with a lot of amputees who they couldn't even hold a Wiimote if they wanted to. So to be able to just bring out the residual limb and to keep it into one space and it would engage with the game was fantastic. We did have some issues with it in that if I was a lower extremity amputee and I was losing a leg, or I didn't have a leg, that the Kinect was having a hard time figuring out what to do with that leg. So a common game, the Kinect Adventures, you know, if I'm trying to jump in a raft, the leg is just flopping around because it's trying to figure out where's that leg that I'm working with, you know. And so we would use that for things for like balance or weight shift or standing tolerance, you know. So if you lose a leg, you're trying to figure out how to find that new center of gravity, you know. So the Kinect had, like, again, some unintentional therapeutic benefits that we harnessed like hardcore. And so, you know, so one of the things I love to do is be able to find those unintentional benefits of gaming, you know, including the Wii, including the Xbox Kinect, which I was really sad to see that it, you know, started to go away and some of the games weren't being, but everybody laughs about the Kinect for the Star Wars Kinect game, but I loved it. I thought it was fantastic, you know, because it was so, you know, quirky and it was awful and amazing all at the same time. But those things in industry, not knowing that potentially is going to happen, what a great like gift to you later on, saying, oh my gosh, I made this and then look what they're using it for. You know, how cool is that? That was really neat for me to, you know, when I started to work in some of the industry and with those folks, that was a really cool, I think, bonus and add, you know, addition to their passion projects.
Yeah, so on that note, that's actually what I was talking about when we lost Brandon earlier. Do you see the voting machine prototype?
I don't think so.
Yeah, so that's what I was saying about what sat behind you. And an example of this happening was the Xbox adaptive controller was actually used as the basis of an exploration of how to build accessible voting machines in the US.
Yeah.
Should we go to Karen?
So I am trying to remember what the exact question was. Sort of feel like we flowed a little.
It was about the potential that accessibility advances in gaming have to influence other industries as well.
Yeah, I think
the biggest thing.
I think the biggest thing is it actually normalizes disability because video games have such a huge reach. It's one of the most popular forms of media in the world. And because of this, people see, oh, there's accessibility settings. Oh, there's color blindness settings. Oh, there's settings for the, you know, vision impaired and things like that. That normalizes it. They're like, oh, people are colorblind. What's color blindness? They may not know that before that, especially children. So it's a great way to engage children in showing that there are disabilities in the world and there are ways to support those. And when they encounter somebody who needs them, it gives them a little more empathy and a little more awareness. And I think that's probably the most important thing in general, is just the mutual understanding and acceptance. Because when I was a kid, there was no such thing as accessibility, really. Like there were no accessibility settings in games. Games were intended to be as hard as possible. Like the whole idea of replay value in a game was, how many times will it take you to beat this level? And it's expected to take you hours to beat one level. And you're expected to have to redo it over and over and over again and start from scratch over and over again. And so the fact that we have modes now, we have difficulty levels, we have all these different things, and it's expected to have them, and it's increasingly expected to have them. And it used to be that people were amazed we're getting settings. Oh, we have even more options. Look at this wonderful welcome screen. This is great. And it's sort of flipped in the last few years to, why don't you have these settings? Why don't you have this welcome screen? It's a complete different shift. And that's actually a really good thing. It's showing that we care, that we are more engaged, we're aware that there are issues, we're aware that people need support, and we expect people to be supported. And that is a wonderful shift. And games really are leading the way in making all this happen, just in society in general. And really, that's my favorite aspect.
Yeah, I remember being absolutely blown away by, well, I don't want to spend the whole panel talking about the adaptive controller, but when the adaptive controller launched and seeing the reaction by the general public all the way across the mainstream media, even on YouTube. And I mean, anyone who's ever looked at the comment section on a YouTube video, like the comment section is normally a wretched hive of scum and villainy, but literally like every single, like viewed by millions of people, every single comment was, oh my God, this is amazing. And this is a lot of people who've never even thought about accessibility at all before in their lives. Their very first interaction with accessibility is thinking, oh my God, this is amazing. That's an incredible thing to see.
You know what's kind of neat too is that even it's changed my profession. You know, 100-year-old profession. You know, when and again, not to keep talking about the ZAC, but or the Xbox Adaptive Controller, but when it came out, it opened a bunch of eyes to all the occupational therapists. Like we showed it the Super Bowl commercial at our annual conference with 10,000 OTs, and since that moment, all of a sudden we have a lot of conversations about OTs working with engineers and OTs working in industry. I mean, we have. When I first walked into Microsoft as a part of Warfighter Engaged, it was with Ken Jones, with our founder, and nobody. I remember like Bryce had no idea what an OT was, you know, and we started talking about what we do, why we do it, and how we do it, and then all of a sudden, you know, a few years later, my profession has now, you know, we're working with Microsoft. I know Brandon firsthand knows that he's got an OT, you know, under his wing that he gets to use her medical formal education to influence future production in Microsoft, which is amazing, you know. But the profession has completely changed because of what industry did to make big efforts forward toward you know, people, gamers with disabilities, and it's fantastic.
Well, you know, and I have to
probably get me in the tails now.
I have to say, Eric, you know, it's been a two-way street for us, right? Like we've been so fortunate to have great organizations and industries and that we normally don't work with begin to partner with us. You know, that helped us make the Xbox Adaptive Controller. You know, I think years ago, I would have been shocked to ever think that I would be working on something gaming related with an occupational therapist or anybody from the medical industry for that matter. And yet, I think what's happened is accessibility has brought out the best in terms of collaboration between industries, even within our own industry, right? You know, Phil Spencer, who runs Xbox, has said flat out, like, you know, we compete in a lot of different places, and I am paraphrasing here, lest Phil get mad at me. But yeah, I mean, Phil basically said, like, look, we compete in a lot of different areas, but at the end of the day, accessibility is not an area where we want to compete. It's an area where we want to collaborate. And, you know, we've had discussions with Nintendo, with Sony, with Google. We've had, you know, we've talked about, you know, our visions for how we can help enable the industry. And there is some friendly competition, but it's good because it helps us, you know, we keep trying to, you know, take accessibility to this next level, right? And so I just got to say, you know, like working with Warfighter Engaged, along with a number of other nonprofits was so incredible because it was such a learning experience, not only for the people who were part of building that product, but also for people, you know, it gave us a great way to introduce those partnerships and introduce how that overlap can occur. So now I get emails all the time from occupational therapists going, hey, I'm trying to use the adaptive controller, you know, do you have some tips? Like, or I have this really great idea on, you know, occupational therapists. You guys are you can go into an office and take a tennis ball and a yardstick, and all of a sudden you've turned into some way to make things therapeutic. you're coming up with these crazy cool ideas that I could never have imagined. And my job now is to go, okay, great. What can we do to help support you in that space? So just, it's been really fun to have that collaboration. It's been really powerful for the industry, and I think for the gaming and disability community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're mentioning Phil Spencer as well. So for anyone watching who isn't aware, Phil Spencer is top guy at Xbox. And a few years ago, there's a game called Uncharted 4 that came out, which was hugely influential. It had a ton of nice accessibility functionality in it. And Phil Spencer took to Twitter to say, this is an important topic for our industry. Great job by Naughty Dog to make it a focus. So Uncharted 4 is like a PlayStation first-party exclusive. It's one of the games that PlayStation uses to persuade people to buy a PlayStation. And this is the boss of Xbox praising one of those first-party exclusives. That doesn't often happen, right? That's what accessibility can do. But yeah, April?
Well, I think since there's a lot of gamers that, especially since accessibility started growing, there are a lot more squeaky wheels in the community. So first, it's once we know closed captioning in this game, we need closed captions in this game. Why are there no, you need to do something. And then the gaming industry listened. It's like, okay, closed captioning, you can scale the fonts, we're making it better. And then you see this start going to other people that have noticed the squeakiness in the gaming industry, and you notice YouTubers captioning their videos. You see trailers for video games with audio descriptions. And it's like, it starts in the gaming industry and it's kind of spread out. And I think that's one way that accessible gaming is helping everywhere.
Yeah, and I guess just the sheer number of eyes on that kind of stuff as well. When you got something like an Assassin's Creed trailer that has audio description on it, then people are going to sit up and take notice, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, I think if other...
Oh, we lost you, April. I think you're on mute.
Sorry. I think if other areas, other companies see, well, if the video game industry is doing this, then why aren't we? So, I think that's where, we're getting the ball rolling in areas that probably wouldn't be.
Yeah, well, I guess that kind of leads perfectly into the next topic as well, which is that all of us on the panel, we've all been in this for a while, long enough to see the kind of trajectory that things have been moving along. So based on that, where would you like things to be? Where do you see accessibility being in 1 year, 5 years, 10 years? April, do you want to start on that?
I would love to see more companies follow the new normal in video games like The Last of Us. Indie developers, look at what they're doing, see how important it is. I understand, you're a small developer, but this is important, Put captioning, put windowed mode, put remapping, just more people start doing that so it gets to be more normal. And then bigger companies, like we've seen, Zach, Microsoft put out this amazing controller. Let's see it work with PlayStation. Let's see it work with Nintendo. Let's see it go to everywhere. So instead of, the options are there, but right now they're still, I guess, really localized. Let it spread out to everywhere in the industry and, grow from there.
Yeah, I liked what you said about indie developers as well, because I mean, obviously, the big successes, things like Gears of War 5 and Last of Us 2, obviously, we've been talking about all those kind of like big tentpole games get loads of visibility, but there's so much amazing stuff being done by small indie developers. I think probably two of the games that are really leading the industry at the moment are Eagle Island and Sequence Storm, and those two games are made by like single like solo indie developers, just one person making them. And there's a lot of power that those small companies have got, is just that they don't have to persuade like a whole management chain that this is a priority. If you want to do something, you can just do it, and you can be responsive as well. You know, if somebody gets in touch with an accessibility issue, you can just like literally shove out a patch that same day.
I have to brag on Secret Storm. I had a problem. I got it because I saw everybody talking about it's got great accessibility, and I got it, and it had no window mode. So immediately I was stuck in the game. So I cried on Twitter and I said something about it, and it was patched within minutes. I think you saw it, Ian, happening, but the developer responded. He looked at the problem, patched it in, and within probably 15, 20 minutes it was fixed. So yeah, it was great.
I see look on Brandon's face. That's the kind of responsiveness that AAA can only dream about, right?
Oh, let me tell you, those fast turnaround times. I would love for that stuff. But I will say, like, I mean, to your point, April, like, we're seeing studios start to take that responsive attitude, and and especially now, as with this notion of products being more of services than like one-shot releases, right? I mean, I think even Ian, you had called out on Twitter recently that Sea of Thieves, in pretty much every update they've put out for ever for the last, what was it, like 16 updates or something? They've improved accessibility, right? And so
in the most recent one, they just added in the one stick mode. Just announced yesterday, I think.
See, so that's it. What's cool about this is that titles that are already out and are running as services, hey, you've got opportunities to improve. But Ian, to take that a step further in terms of where I want to see the industry, is I want people to start thinking about accessibility at the start. Like in 10 years, right. I want, when we're all sitting down during concept going, all right, I've got this great idea for a game. We're all thinking about not necessarily how we make it accessible, because I tend to think of accessibility as how you add features to take an inaccessible thing and make it usable. But I'm thinking more about, from the get-go, thinking about how do we design this inclusively, right? How do we design it inclusively so that the accessibility comes naturally as part of the experience, right? And what's great about that is if we can get developers, middleware developers, game developers, platform developers to do that thinking early on, like I said, right at the beginning of development, not only will we see much better results for the community, but it's very beneficial for the industry because it becomes much less costly to do so. One of the biggest arguments we hear about accessibility is, oh, it's going to cost me so much. And I'm like, well, yeah, you're trying to patch it in, like, in your beta phase. You've already developed the vast majority of the product. You have to go and retrofit and tear apart your engine. And it doesn't have to be that way. So, my hope for the future is, yeah, there's going to be great tech. And I do believe that AI and machine learning have some really cool potentials. VR is another space that I still feel is pretty nascent and people are still exploring. But really, in 10 years, I want to be able to go into a meeting and just inclusivity is just part of the discussion for new products from the very get-go. And I think we're getting there, slowly but surely, but I think we're getting there.
Yeah, well, that's always when a company has their first experience with accessibility, it is often that kind of like late in development, trying to see what kind of maybe quick wins there might be. And it's always the same thing that I hear time and time again. It's always the same. Damn, if only I'd have thought about this early in development, So that's something I feel confident about in the future, is that the people are learning those kind of lessons, and as time goes on, they're just going to be able to do, as you said, be able to do more and be able to do it cheaper and better.
Yeah, what's interesting is, like, in 10 years, what I would like to see is that this is just not a conversation, because it's just so ingrained. Just a few weeks ago, Steve Saylor, posts a very vulnerable video of himself just crying tears of joy because of the accessibility features of Last of Us, and from that, he gets 3 or 4 likes, in previous tweets, and now all of a sudden he's got 500, 600,000 views because developers, because people wanted to share that message Like, do you see how important this is? And then in 10 years from now, I want that to be such a like insignificant moment, because it's just not a part of our conversation. The conversation is so past that. We've already solved so many of those problems, and it's just like Brandon said, it's a part of the initial process. We cannot progress if we don't start there first. It's just got to be like, that's the part, like, just as much as you're talking about what characters are going to be in our next game, that should be already a part of the thing, assuming that I'm already going to do it. I know it's another thing, and once we achieve that, in that mix, we're also going to have to say, like, on top of being able to, on the user interface side, I'm going to have to figure out having to use all these inputs for a Call of Duty game from all of these things to the inputs of one side, a couple buttons, like one directional pad or one joysticks and a couple buttons should give me the ability to get through an entire game as just as much as me being able to access all these functions on 22, 23 different type of inputs on a traditional controller. Like, I have to be able to get somebody with no hands to complete a game in that space, and I don't, this is part of the answer. This is part of the answer. There's a lot of answers, but I just want to be able to have somebody, like, I've had quadriplegic patients with all they've had is head movement and sip and puff, or mouth control. I want them to play these games, from start to finish. And I think in 10 years, I don't think that's going to be a conversation, because I think it's going to happen. And I'm excited about that.
Yeah, I think that's important to emphasize as well, that that it is about those games that people want to play. People want to be playing Call of Duty. People want to be playing FIFA. Like, I see that a lot on social media. People saying, well, why don't you just like go and make some like games for disabled people and they can play it? Like, who wants that? But FIFA in particular, I love the example that FIFA is of exactly what you were talking about, where FIFA has a really complicated control scheme, but it also has an option where you can scale it all the way down, and through just like contextually understanding what you're most likely to want to do at that point in time, it actually lets you play the game just using a single stick and a single button. I've seen similar applications of that, even to like really involved immersive 3D exploration games like Assassin's Creed, that kind of stuff, where you can actually do really similar stuff. So I'd love to see more of that. But yeah, I guess talking about FIFA leads nicely into Karen.
Hi, yeah. Yeah, I remember the meetings about reducing it down to one button. For where I see accessibility going, let's put it this way. We follow this society in general. And if you look into the way each generation behaves, each generation has been more inclusive than the last. And so when you get down to like the current children of the world, they have different questions and different wants and needs than if you go to when I was a kid. And at this point, it's why can't I play this with my friend? Why isn't this allowed? I should be able to do this. Why can't I do this? And it goes back to the whole thing I mentioned earlier of the feedback is much more of a, why don't you have this? Why isn't this a feature? Why isn't this an option? As long as that keeps happening, it's not going anywhere. Accessibility is not going to go away. It's going to keep increasing because we are following the world. Like, the world is following us, but we're following them too. And it's like this feedback loop. And we've got this feedback loop of accessibility going on that just keeps going. So no matter what, I don't see accessibility as a concept going anywhere, especially as that trend continues. So really, I mean, that's true. Children are our future, and that's what they want. So I see bright things.
Yeah, I like that. What you said about the feedback loop. That kind of reminds me a bit of one of my favorite quotes. It was from John Knowles, who's design director on the Forza games, on racing games. And he said it's like there is a race to build the most accessible game, and which is kind of what it feels like, everyone pushing forwards, learning from each other, helping to push the field forward. And he said, yeah, it's like there's a race to build the most accessible game, and I know a thing or two about racing, and this is a race that everyone wins.
I love John Knoll.
The Forza team, I just shout out to them. That team has taken this message, to heart. I know I'm a little biased here, being from Microsoft, but I got to tell you, that team in particular, they have just really embraced accessibility, embraced working with the community. And yeah, maybe that's the last thing I'll just say is I think, Ian, in the future, I want to see more people from our community making these games, right? Like right now, we're at this point where it's about getting our industry to talk to people from the community. And again, that's fantastic. We're bringing in the community, we're getting their feedback. There's this notion of nothing about us without us, right? In the disability community, we don't want to be building products for people with disabilities. We want to be building products with people with disabilities, right? And I think even to take that further is I want to see more technological advances in the ability in the tools, the creation tools, the middleware engines, so that our disability community can actually be a part of actually making these products, right? And I'm been so excited to see the work, like I said, at Turn 10, they're bringing in the community left and right and whatnot, and it's fantastic. And I think to Karen's point about the way our mind shifts are saying, I'm starting to see more people slowly but surely, more representation in the industry. At the end of the day, we have to make sure that our tools and our middleware are accessible, right? And I think that's actually really going to be the next big challenge for us. If you wanted to ask me what's your biggest challenge going forward with accessibility right now, I think honestly it's like, okay, I think we understand that it's important. I don't have to go into meetings anymore and say, here's why accessibility is important, right? Now the question is, how do I do it? Or I don't have the tools to do it. And so I think now it's those development tools, those game engines. That's where I think we're hopefully we'll see a lot of advances in the next 5 years to make the development of these products easier, both in terms of making the games themselves accessible, but also allowing people from the community to participate in the game development process directly.
I think actually that's one of the highlights of the last year for me was after so many years of trying, people endlessly advocating, trying to get engines to listen. So the people who make the tools that games are made with, trying to get them to listen. And actually, recently Unity, which is the most popular game making tool, they have actually had job adverts out recruiting an entire team just to work on accessibility. That's covering two things. Firstly, to help develop tools to allow developers to make their games more accessible, but also to help make the editor itself more accessible to disabled developers. And that was really awesome to see.
I can say that at EA, we have been putting effort into making our internal tools more accessible. And we've also, not only have they been putting effort in all that, we actually have a blind engineer, totally blind engineer, who we have semi-unstructured simply because we don't know all the tools he's going to hit, and he's helping us fix all of them. So we've gone through and had editors where he's had trouble using the editor, but he's a developer. He's gone out and pulled down their source code, fixed it so he could use it, and then pushes it back up. So we've been actively working on making all of our internal tools accessible to everybody.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're just about out of time, but I've just got one other thing. So if you can keep this really, really short, I think it's important though, which is if you could give a message to people watching this, people who might not necessarily be involved in game development directly, but would like to help push this forwards, what would you say to those people? Karen, do you want to start?
I'm waiting for your captions. And okay, now it finally came over. I'm actually reading the transcript on a separate screen. So it takes a moment for it to come over. Anyway, I would say keep asking. Keep asking for things, keep pushing us, keep giving us feedback. Even if you've given us feedback 10 times over, get them at 11th. Each time matters. The number of people matter, the frequency matters, all that matters. We do actually track it. For ea.com/able is our accessibility portal. We do have feedback channels. If you give feedback in the forums, it goes into a database. And that's the most important thing, because once it's in that database, it doesn't get lost. Emails can get lost, the database remains. So I would say, please give us feedback, lots of feedback, more the merrier. Feel free to upvote other people's feedback, because the more we can show like that this is needed, and it's still needed, the more likely it is that we'll make sure that gets more appropriately prioritized. But yes, don't be, I know it's hard, it's easy to say this, it's hard to actually believe it. Try not to be too discouraged. Yes, this is going to take time. Please, please keep asking.
Yeah, I think as well, don't be discouraged if you get in touch with a game studio and they don't reply, or you don't see the results in the game, because there's all kinds of reasons why people not be able to reply. And often when people get in touch about a game, it can be too late to make changes on that one, but still always worth getting in touch, because someone is reading that. That'll be filed away, and that might not appear in this game. It might help the next game, the game after that, and it will help to push things forward. Brandon?
This actually, to add to that, not only does it affect, maybe if you give feedback on a game that doesn't currently apply, we do take that feedback and use it to figure out what we're going to do on other completely separate games. It's not just that one game it's evaluated for. So feedback's always valuable.
Positive feedback as well. That's an amazing driver for developers, is actually, if something is working for you, let people know. That kind of stuff gets shared really widely around within studios and helps them motivate and push things forward.
Yeah, I mean, my feedback is exactly Karen's. I'll just echo it. Be loud. Don't be afraid to send us your feedback. I think a lot of people feel like, oh, it goes into this kind of black hole. I send a mail and I don't get a response, or, and to Ian's point, I think there's a lot of times, resources are limited. Studios are, we get a lot of direct messages about a lot of different topics. But I can tell you that at Microsoft, at least speaking for myself, we get all of that feedback and we use it to make cases for our community. And then not only that, but we take that information that we gather and we use that, we spread that out through the rest of the industry. When I go out and talk to third-party developers and platforms and middleware developers, right? So don't be afraid to reach out and say, look, this is important to me, or this is important to a friend of mine, or my child, or my parents, right? Be vocal and be specific. Tell us what you really, what is it, it's nice to hear people say, yeah, this experience isn't accessible. We would really like it if you fix it. But what's really helpful is when you say, here's why it's not accessible. Here's the specific problems I'm having, because we take that information, we wrap it up, and we use it to inform the documentation and the training and the tooling, all that stuff we're building. So I'm out on Twitter. You can find me. DM me, drop me messages. And to your point, I always tell people, like, look, I can't promise you that I can get a response from the studio, but I can promise you they'll see your feedback, right? That is one of my jobs, is to make sure that I get that feedback out to our developers. And it is very, very valued. And I see it make tangible changes on a regular basis. So just keep that in mind. And to Karen's point, don't be discouraged if you don't necessarily hear back or you don't get the answer you're looking for. It does help.
Yeah. Eric?
The only thing I want to say is, like, if we were right to the very beginning, this is all about kind of our ability to engage and enjoy. It gives us a purpose. It gives us a story to fulfill. We watch movies because we want to see a story. We read books because we want to see a story. We play games because we want to play a story, and that could be like over and over and over again. But I want to see how that comes out. So if I can't engage in your story, what's the point of writing it? So as a developer, if you're creating a story that we can't all finish, it's pointless. So create a story that I can read, or anyone can read, and create a story that I can complete and engage in, because I'm going to find some self-actualization in that. I'm going to find some completion. I'm going to, build that mental health, that psychosocial well-being that we're looking for. And if I have roadblocks to that, it's going to go the other direction. So just remember that as you're approaching these, we want to complete your story. We want to experience the joy and passion that you put into this. I just need to be able to do it. And And that's all I have to say.
April?
Like everyone else has said, I think the last 6 years at Ability Powered, I've spent being the squeaky wheel. Message to developers. I'm pretty sure I'm on a hot list at Blizzard somewhere because I spent over a year just sitting there going, hey, this needs to be fixed. Hey, did you know this still needs to be fixed? Can you fix this yet? And finally, in a patch, lo and behold, when I thought they weren't listening and no one was hearing me, there's the fix, and it's there. So developers do hear you. And if you're a disabled gamer, stream, YouTube,
Yeah.
tweet, write about your experiences. The developers need to see where the struggle is so they know how to fix it. And the more you talk about it, and the more you get it seen, tweet it to the developers.
Or us, we'll all get it out there.
Yeah, exactly. The more people that you get eyes on it, you are going to make a change. And it may just be getting windowed mode in this game. But getting at this game is going to show other games, hey, this needs to be done. And it's going to be the domino effect. So that would be my advice, just be the squeaky wheel everywhere.
Yeah, I think as well other people can help by sticking a megaphone in front of that squeaky wheel, you know. I remember a turning point for me was when the Assassin's Creed 3 was due to come out, and someone had posted on the forum saying they would like button remapping. They didn't get it. It didn't come until like 4 Assassin's Creed games later, but that felt like a real turning point to me because up until that point, anytime somebody posted about an accessibility issue, like on a games forum or something, there would be just loads of vitriol and stuff come out. And that was the first time I actually noticed that it was just an outpouring support. Loads of gamers who didn't need remapping themselves, but were actually saying, actually, this is important. I understand. I think this should happen. So I think that's something powerful that anyone can do, is just be supportive of your fellow gamers. You know, if you see somebody who's raising an accessibility issue, give it a retweet. Say you agree, you know. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think that is a good note to finish on. So all that's left now is to say thank you. So thank you to our panelists, to Karen, April, Eric, and Brannon. And thank you to the organisers for having us as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Cheers all.
Thank you.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Welcome to all those tuning in for our panel discussion on the power of sports to transform the lives of people with disabilities, helping them to discover the champion within. My name is Grace Hightower, and I will be your moderator. Special Olympics New York is proud to present this discussion in partnership with Disability Unite as New York celebrates Disability Pride Month and the 30th anniversary of the signing of the Americans with Disabilities Act. We have a strong group of panelists here, each with their own story about the power of sports. If you would please introduce yourselves.
Hi, thank you, Grace. It's so good to see you. My name is Stacy Hengsterman. I'm the president and CEO of Special Olympics New York. And I'm also the proud mother of 3 children. My middle son, Alex, is a Special Olympics athlete.
Fantastic. And please say your title and one sentence about why you're here. And as well, athletes, please also include the sports you compete in.
Well, my name is Andrea Kahn, and I am Vice President of Special Olympics Unified Champion Schools. And I'm here because I believe in the power of sports to promote inclusion for everybody in every place that they live, in every place that they go, and especially for our young people in schools.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Hi, I'm Jenny Sitchell, and I am a Paralympian from Rio 2016, silver medalist in rowing. And I am here because I really think that sport can change lives and help improve a lot in anyone's life, really. And yeah, that was horrible.
No, that's fantastic. Great.
How you doing? My name is Joe Stewart. I'm a physical education teacher and unified sports coach at P721M. And I am here to talk a little bit about our program and how unified sports has had an impact on all of our student athletes.
Fantastic. Thank you, Joe. And I believe we have Trent, our other athlete.
Good afternoon. My name is Trent Hampton. I am from Long Island, New York, Special Olympics athlete leader and World Games two-time bronze medalist in the triathlon and athletics, which is track and field. A proud member of a 10-person family, very well educated, working on my doctorate degree in accounting. And I am here because sports has changed my life and has made my life a lot more manageable because it gave me a purpose and a drive and hope.
Fantastic, Trent. Thank you so much. I got involved with Special Olympics a year ago. I became a board member. Prior to that, I had attended events given by Mrs. Eunice Shriver and Mr. Sergeant Shriver at their home. And I thought it was an incredible organization that they had started. And when I was approached by Bobby Shriver last year to perhaps participate in an ESPN Game Changer video, I thought it was a fantastic idea because I have a wonderful 22-year-old son who is taking tennis lessons and now playing tennis. And tennis has absolutely changed his life, sports in general. I mean, he also works out. So after meeting Stacy, we had a 3-hour conversation. I just found that Special Olympics is one of the most incredible organizations I've ever heard of, least of all been involved in. And I'm so proud to be a board member today. And I would just like to share with you that sports has so many components of helping to create an incredible life for everyone, and for these special, wonderful, determined persons at Special Olympics. It just has been such an incredible learning experience for me and observation, and I just hope that everyone will eventually get the what am I calling it? Get the incredible spirit of Special Olympics and its wonderful sport. So with all due, now we will have the video of my son Elliot that I was speaking of earlier. Get a little. Tennis with Elliot was not a hit in the very beginning. I felt that there was some form of exercise that would be helpful for him. My name is Grace Hightower, and I'm Elliot's mom.
Finding things for kids to do is a hard part of the whole situation with parents of kids with special needs. I'm Elliot's dad. He wasn't crazy about it at times, and sometimes didn't want to do it, or we always had to negotiate. Easter Sunday, the 19th to 20th of April, 2014. Great, Elliot. His mother was good at pushing and wanting him to be physical and work out. I've seen growth. I've seen physical growth. He's like, he's like a real, as they say, starker. The kid's like, got a real athlete's physique.
One of the goals that was implemented was him hitting targets of cans. And that just became such an inspiration for him.
I've hit 5. No, I've hit, I think it's 6, like 10.
Great control. Excellent. Woo!
It feels nice. Sometimes I feel jittery inside.
He has realized, oh, I can accomplish this. I can do this. It has helped him socially. Max and Elliot's relationship is really quite lovely. Max's mother and I started to speak about Elliot and Max, and I told her that Elliot was working out and that it really has helped him to become a bit more motivated and open. And she said, well, I wonder how would that work with Max? And I said, well, you know, we should give it a try.
I'm Helene, and I'm Max's mom. Max's reaction was, you're gonna make me exercise? Food and eating is so sensory and so comforting, and exercise is hard. And it's kind of exciting to me to watch how Max and Elliot have made a connection. They experience the joy of exercising together, but also they have the comfort. It's really special. And I've just seen a change in him. If Elliot's upset, he goes over and tries to calm him. He squeezes his arm, he squeezes his hand. That just blows me away.
You're gonna help out Elliot?
Okay.
Let's try. Great catch, Elliot. Great catch, Max.
It's becoming easier for him to move and exercise, and he can follow and track what everyone's doing, taking direction. So these are all wins for him. I think every parent goes through that isolation of like, my kid has special needs and he won't have friends. You know, and you want everyone to have a friend. That's what makes me really happy.
And it helps him be more confident when he sees that he is actually good at this. That's the best self-motivator one can have. He's going to feel better about himself, which he does. So it's a win-win for everybody, especially him.
That is the gift you give your child. That is the gift, to be able to succeed within themselves and give them that motivation, confidence, the knowing of who they are. They have that, they can do so much.
It can really help you. I feel sometimes uplifted.
So let's start with you, Stacey, as president and CEO of Special Olympics New York, and as a mother to one of its athletes. Tell us about the power of sport to help people with disabilities become a champion.
I will, and yes, that video makes me teary too. I think we probably always tear up at the same spots. So I prepare for it now. But thank you, Grace, and thank you for being so generous and always in our friendship, really, as moms. So we did talk, you know, for 3 hours on that first meeting, and I think a lot was about Special Olympics, but a lot was really about being a mom of a child with a disability. And you know, I fess up, I didn't know the power of sports for people. Let me just say for people. I did not get this job because I'm a hidden athlete like Jenny, or my sports knowledge. So I certainly didn't think of sports as something that my son would be into or my son would be doing. And, you know, luckily I had other skills, which is why I interviewed and got this job. But so I learned kind of through this job. And there's two things you'd say. Special Olympics started over 50 years ago. Eunice Kennedy Shriver. You know, I look at all of you and you are my heroes. That's what Trent calls me when he texts me and makes me feel good. But she's my hero. She saw injustice in the world for people with intellectual disabilities when nobody was thinking about people with intellectual disabilities. They were excluded from everything. They were institutionalized. They were not given any chance of having any growth at all. From the doctors down, it was, well, too bad for you and too bad for that person. We'll put them over there and we won't think about them anymore. But little do they know, she had a sister with intellectual disabilities, and she did not think about, she didn't see that disability. She saw her sister and she saw a sports competitor. I'm not gonna say I know the Kennedy family like personally, but we all do know they're into their sports. So was her sister. So she thought and got that thing, if you could show the power, the growth of people with disabilities through sports, if they could see themselves as athletes, then, and the world can see them as athletes, they get more confident, they grow, and they become more included. So while Special Olympics is a sports organization. It's really a global movement of inclusion for everybody. We've got the recipe that the world needs right here in Special Olympics, and that's through sports, and that's through inclusion. So New York is one of the Special Olympics programs. They're all across the country, all over the world. I like to say we're the biggest one, but this is going to probably be aired, and Texas probably has us beat, but New York, well, whatever. We'll argue with Texas. Well, maybe I won't. You don't mess with Texas. But we have a very large program, 68,000 athletes. We're in every region of the state, 23 sports, Olympics sports that we offer. So this is what I like to say about Special Olympics. If you can only get this, authentic every day. I didn't think Special Olympics was real. I didn't think that sports was real. I fess up. I thought it was a great organization. I thought it did a lot for people with disabilities. I thought it was loving and kind and strong and all of those things. But I 100% thought everybody gets a medal, everybody wins, and volunteers' jobs were to hug them. Nothing really wrong with that. Not what Special Olympics is. And I found out probably on day 2 at a powerlifting competition when one of our athletes got disqualified because there's certain rules you have to follow. Powerlifting is a very tricky sport. You have to follow precisely, and if you don't, you get disqualified. So what did the new CEO do? I cried. I told the staff, go tell them, let them do it a do-over, let them try it again. No, that's not what it is. It's real sports, real rules, the same rules as anybody else. The authenticity of it is what I don't think that people understand. I certainly didn't. And then let's walk that back a little bit. Why would I think that people with an intellectual difference didn't deserve authentic competition and authentic sports? So I'm saying that because if I felt that way as a pretty good mom of a mother, you know, of a son with a disability, what is everybody else thinking? The other thing about Special Olympics is I get asked, when is the Special Olympics? The Special Olympics. They're thinking of those big games, and they should, right? They work hard for them, and they're great, and they're glorious, and I love them. That's just like the Olympics. It's the culminating event. Special Olympics is our athletes, 68,000 across the state. They're training every day. They have training clubs. They're beating the next team to the next team so they can get to those competitions. So it's really only a fraction of our athletes, Trent being a returner, gold medal returner, that get to go to those big games that everyone thinks about. But the rest of it is everyday sports. So my son now is a Special Olympics athlete. And I think, Grace, I think you've pushed me there too. You've said, if Elliot can do, like Alex can do it, Alex can do it. And with Special Olympics in our life, he's got a schedule now. He's got practice Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. You know, he's on a unified bowling team, which Andrea will talk about at school. He's got that twice a week. So all of a sudden, at 16 years old, I have a kid and I have to worry about a carpool schedule, which I've never had to do before. So I think, and he gets more confident. He gets to say all those things. I do this. So the change in the confidence level for him is immense, but the change in the perception of people and how they look at him and his friendships is worth everything. So I just say that Special Olympics is everything you want it to be. It is.
Thank you, Stacy. I totally agree with you, and thank you so much. And I wanted to just add a little bit of piece there for, in speaking about my son, Elliot, as well. You know, it's something when he says at the very end of the video, it's uplifting when you do sports. And it truly is. I'm a kind of a tomboy in a way, so I've done a great deal of sports growing up throughout my life. But what I did notice about Elliot was that after he finished playing or playing tennis or working out, he had such an amazing calmness. He was feeling good about himself because he had accomplished. It's like anyone else out here in the world, and you're absolutely right. Why should the intellectually challenged be treated differently? As a matter of fact, the more you give to them, the more challenge you give to them, the more they actually deliver. And I know exactly from one.
Imagine that, right? That's the way we all work, right?
And that's the way we all work. And so it's just giving them that opportunity. So I just wanted throw that in there.
Thank you, Grace.
So now we are so fortunate to have one of New York's finest here with us today, Trent. And Trent, you've been an athlete with Special Olympics for many years. The other athletes look up to you. I had the pleasure of meeting you, I think, a year and a half ago, and you are truly special. You are someone to look up to, whether it's another athlete or not. You're an incredible human being, and you won medals on the world stage. So could you please tell us what this experience has meant for you?
Well, going to World Games was a humbling experience because I thought I would never get the opportunity to go because there's so many other athletes that are very good, there are other athletes that have medals, that have got medals, in the regional, local, and national games. Some athletes have gone twice, some athletes have gone 3 times. So it's one of those where, there's competition, but I also learned that people are watching too, and they watch how you carry yourself. So if you are a leader and rather than a follower, it kind of it opens up opportunities for you to be looked upon and called upon and asked to do things and asked to be a mentor, which is what I was always known to be ever since I was in grade school. I can remember the governor way back when that I received the award from the New York State governor as being a good mentor, and it's for another Trent, but it was for me, and I didn't realize that how much of an impact I've had on people's lives in so many ways. My guidance counselors used to tell me that I was somebody that everyone loved.
And you are. How did you get started with Special Olympics?
I went to a games. Long Island hosted the summer games one year. And I went to the opening ceremony. I went to the competition, the track and field competition. And then I went to the closing, got invited because all the events are open to the public. Right. So I asked, how can I get involved? And, I actually snuck my way into the games when they went to Albany, because I got to go to a practice, and then then I was training on my own, so I was able to get involved, and I started as an athlete for a couple of years, and then about 4 or 5 years ago they developed what's called an athlete leadership program, so I became an athlete leader and an ambassador, which I still am. And then that's how I got involved, by speaking, talking to athletes, being a role model. And I'm still doing that now. And I look forward to doing that some more as we slowly come out of the pandemic.
Yes. How being an athlete, how has being an athlete has changed your life? How do you think, not think, but how has it been for you being an athlete? How would you say that has changed your life from before?
I was born with a learning disability. So anything from math to reading to anything that involved reasoning and motor skills, if I couldn't figure it out, I would get angry. So an outlet for me was sports, because I was able to channel that anger and energy into something physical rather than being destructive.
I just wanted to say, because I have that moment, and that I met Trent early on, and really encouraged me to take each day at a time. And I think right now, especially right now, and Trent mentioned the pandemic that we're in and how hard and more isolating it is for so many of our athletes, but I also challenge everybody that when they're thinking of who a Special Olympics athlete might be, they close their eyes and really think of who that might be. Whatever stereotype or whatever they're thinking, I can guarantee the majority of people are not thinking of Trent, who's on this from his car, because he is an essential worker working in the healthcare industry. So he has not been able to do a lot of our virtual programming because he's been at work. And he runs, I believe, an 8-minute mile. Wow. I know, something super fast. You can't even see. So it's Special Olympics. It is for, it's all inclusive to everything, but I think it's important in this time to be thinking that we have so many of our athletes that are also essential workers. So, and for that, I just can't admire Trent any more than I do. And he's my friend and a mentor to me too. And I get to say all that because gets frozen. So
is he back? He's back with us. Trent, are you back
we
with us?
lost him a little bit. We'll get him back again.
Okay. All right. So Jenny.
Yes.
Okay, you too have won medals on the world stage as a Paralympian. I imagine that what Trent describes resonates with you a bit. So our viewers, so that our viewers will understand the difference, the Special Olympics is for people with intellectual disabilities, while the Paralympics is for people with any disability and only an opportunity to compete at the elite level. Jenny,
So
tell us.
I'm just going to let you know it's physical or visual
Physical.
impairment. Just
Okay,
there's
great.
that delineation there.
Physical and visual impairment. Thank you for that. Thank you very much for clarifying that. So please tell us, in addition, what the Paralympics has brought to your life.
It has 100% changed my life because I remember being 6 years old and I remember seeing Nancy Kerrigan on TV. I'm totally dating myself right now. And she said that she was 6 when she started figure skating. And my first thought as a 6-year-old was, oh my God, I still have an opportunity to go to the Olympics.
Oh.
And then I remember like playing gymnastics growing up and watching Shannon Miller. Didn't really know how I was going to get there, but wanted to get there. And I ended up starting rowing in college, actually. And since then, it has completely changed my path. You know, I wanted to become a veterinarian out of college, and I decided to go into rowing instead and really pursue it to see where I could get. So by being able to go to the Paralympics, it really kind of solidified a dream for me and showed me that with hard work and dedication, no matter how many people try to push you down or say no, whatever it might be, or say, oh, that's for people with like big skills, like that kind of thing. But it's possible. And I'm sure Trent feels the same way when he said, you know, I never thought I would get there, but it's absolutely achievable if that is something like that you set your mind to and you dedicate to. And what I love is it's made me realize that it's not necessarily about getting there. It's not about the medal that I've won. That's more of a branching mechanism. What it's really about is the journey.
Oh.
And what I've been through, because it shaped who I am, and I love who I am.
That's so fantastic. When I had my first experience with Paralympics was a cousin of mine helped with the hockey team. And so I first watched a hockey game. And I tell you, I enjoyed that so much until I watch the Paralympics whenever I can. It is, for me, it is the biggest thrill ever. It just makes me become a more determined and better person myself, because it just shows what you know, what you guys are made of, and that, you know what, you give everybody inspiration and hope and motivation.
You know, it's like, and it's just as competitive as everything
Yes.
else. Like, I have come in, I've had 4 world second places, world medals, silver medals from world championships, 1 Paralympic silver medal, and I've come in second place by 0.26 seconds.
Wow.
Like,
wow.
that's literally beep, beep on the finish line buzzer. So if people say, you know, oh, it's not as competitive, it's kind of boring to watch, I absolutely dare you to watch the Paralympics.
I'm going to ask you a question. Why? Okay, why is inclusion so important in sports and in life?
I really think that in life in general, there, especially right now, there's a lot of stigma associated with people with disabilities. And I really think that sports and inclusion you kind of break that stigma when you have people with disabilities, without disabilities, kind of coming together to unify over athletics and sports. And it really helps break down those barriers to getting to know the person rather than looking at someone for their disability.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. 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 Can you just tell us how you got involved, Jenny?
Yeah, so that's kind of a funny story. So I actually kind of happened upon parasport in the sense that I myself have a mental health disability, but that doesn't classify you for Paralympics. So I was actually more like an athlete competition partner in Rio. But I got into it. I went to Bryn Mawr College and I was coxing one summer down at Boathouse Row in Philadelphia and had the dream of going to the Olympics and wanted to do as much as I could to really see what I could do to get there. And I ended up coxing. Some woman jumped into my boat during a Masters National race, took the race, finished the race. She was like, "Oh, that was pretty good. Can I get your name and number?" And I was like, "Sure. I'll cox for this boat club again." And then it turns out she was the adaptive national team coach at the time and invited me to a couple development camps. And then I made my first national team in 2010. And it's all kind of been a little bit crazy, but really fun journey since then, for the most part.
And how being an athlete, how has that changed your life?
I mean, as I mentioned, I never really dreamed, like I wanted to. I've always wanted to be an athlete. I've always wanted to push both my body and my mind to the physical limits. And I think that by being an athlete, it's really shown me that no matter, like, I can push through that. No matter what barriers are in front of me, whether it be at work every day, whether it be, I just had some surgery on my ACL and like walking.
Wow.
It's one of those things where it really teaches you and shows you that you are able to do more than what you actually think you can or what others think you can as well.
Right. So what would you say some of the obstacles have been with people with disabilities? What are some of the obstacles you've experienced on the way to becoming a champion? I know you said that, being the champion, getting the medals, that's great and that's like gravy. But what are some of those obstacles and how did you overcome them?
So I think that the major obstacle right now is the way that Paralympics and Special Olympics are kind of viewed in the US, and how you have these amazing athletes that, if I ask you to name one Paralympian, like, it's not easy for a lot of people to do that. But if I ask you to name one Olympian, oh, bang, Michael Phelps. Easy. And so I think really that gap that is there right now is the hardest thing. And it happens when you go, it happens when you go to the boathouse. You have people looking at you and saying, "Oh, you can row?" And it's like, "Yeah, I can." Like, "You can row?"
Yeah, can you row? I can't row, I can tell you that.
I can't row either.
So I really think that it's just people's perceptions are the most difficult thing, and those inequities. Like when I won my medal in Rio, I actually only got 1/5 of the medal payout that an Olympian got. So an Olympian got $15,000 for winning a silver medal, and I got $3,500.
Wow.
And since then, it's been, I've spoken out, and with my movement that I lead, Link 20, we and a bunch of other advocates across the US, we've actually equalized the medal payout as of 2018, retroactively. Now, there's still definite inequities like media coverage, direct athlete support. So athletes get a stipend for training, and they're nowhere near equal for a Paralympian versus an Olympian. I had to have a full-time job to be able to basically survive and pay rent and everything, and then train on either hour of the day. So I really think that there's still a lot that needs to change. It's going in the right direction, but perception and really just, I mean, like the ADA has done so much for people, and why, like, we need something in sport that will equalize that playing field too.
Absolutely, I agree. Agreed. And hopefully we can, keep moving, forward and towards this this gap that you mentioned. Hopefully we can decrease it
Yeah,
sooner than later.
that's the goal. That's definitely the goal. And let's,
Definitely.
like, I am ready. Let's get it going.
All right. Well, it's been such a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you so much, Jenny, and keep
Thank
that
you.
fire going.
Oh,
My God, I can see you motivating a lot of people. Okay, I see that. Oh, wow. So now we're going to have to, not have to, but we will shift because of time now to unified sports, in which people with and without disabilities play on the same team. Thank you. This movement is particularly impactful in what we call Special Olympics Unified Champion Schools. Andrea is here to tell us more about it. But first, we have a video.
Let's do it.
Wow. That's fantastic. Andrea, tell us about playing unified.
I'm really happy to tell you about it. I think that video does a great job of
Yeah.
introducing it. There's a lot of energy there, and that is what unified sports is all about. You explained it very well. It's people with and without intellectual disabilities playing on the same team. But I have to tell you that video, for all its energy, doesn't even begin to scratch the surface of the power and the impact of unified sports. I'm very fortunate to have the chance to be very involved in this program as we have it in schools across the country in the United States and around the world. But I don't think very many people are aware of it. And it might seem like a new thing. It might seem like something innovative and different. People, playing on the same teams, on inclusive teams, that's not something people see very often. But in fact, unified sports has been around for 30 plus years. It was not our main feature, though, and a lot of people weren't aware that Special Olympics had unified sports, and it was mostly for adults. It tended to be an adult program. About 12 years ago, we had the chance to introduce unified sports into schools in a partnership with the U.S. Department of Education, and that has really seen a huge growth and explosion of unified sports across the country. We know from our experience with unified that it had the power to bring people together. Just like Special Olympics gives people the opportunity to showcase their abilities and make sure that people understand the gifts and the skills of people with intellectual disabilities, and also for them to build their own confidence and give them a chance to be included more in their communities, in their families, in their schools. Unified sports gives people a chance to really get to know each other as teammates on the same team. And I think even those of us like myself, Stacy, I'm with you, I'm not an athlete, but I do understand what it means to be on a team and get to know somebody. It's different than when you're not working on something together. So that's what we thought could really have an impact in schools. And we know, all of us know, we've all been in school. Kids have a tough time in school. Our children have a tough time in schools. All kids have a tough time. It's easy to become isolated. It's easily to be disengaged. We know that students often are not interested in school. They drop out. They get in discipline situations. They have bad attendance records, and all of those things that are challenges for kids, mental health challenges, etc. 2 to 3 times more likely to be a challenge for people with disabilities. And even more on top of that for children with intellectual disabilities. So people with intellectual disabilities have a tough road in schools. And we really understood that unified sports could have an impact on that. The sport is just the catalyst for a whole array of activities that happens in a school, though. We have the unified sports, and when you're on a unified sports team, like I said, the friendships are built and you get to know each other and you learn each other's gifts and skills. But then we also have leadership clubs, unified leadership clubs. And Trent, you know all about that. Being a leader gives you a chance to showcase your skills in completely different ways. So not only can you be a leader on the playing field, but you can be a leader in developing projects. And students without intellectual disabilities are in those same clubs, and you're working on projects together, figuring out ways to make your school more inclusive, not just the sports, but how do we get more people to come to the games? How do we have a pep rally that celebrates our unified sports teams? How do we make sure that everybody in the school is aware of what disabilities are and what it means? And then the third part of it, which makes a true unified champion school, is the whole school engagement, where you see all of these inclusive things happening and it's a norm. So it's not just the 20 kids that are playing basketball, and it's not just the 15 kids that are in a unified club, but then the entire school sees all of these things happening, and they see inclusion as a norm. And I remember it, even though it was a really long time ago, and Jenny and Trent, you probably remember it more recently, it's really hard to put yourself out there when you're in school and everybody is looking at you and judging you. And if someone is different than you, it's really hard to be friends with them because you're worried about what other people are going to think. And if it's a norm in your school, if everybody already does that, if everybody already hangs out together, if you already have inclusive clubs and everybody goes to the same assemblies and you come out in the hall at the same time and you eat lunch at the same time, then it's not as hard to say hi to someone in the hall or to be friends or to invite someone to come and sit by you. And so that's what unified champion schools are all about. It's taking the magic that we know happens on the unified sports team and amplifying that with clubs and activities. And kids are putting on all kinds of activities in their schools to make them more inclusive. It's a pretty exciting phenomena. And I just want to share this idea of inclusion. It's hard because we have, as a society, we have a lot of rules, a lot of laws. Jenny mentioned the ADA, the IDEA, all of these laws that have been passed to support equality for people with disabilities. The problem, the challenge, is that they have helped us all get into the same building. They have helped us all have access to the same curriculum, but they have not helped us figure out how to make sure that we are socially included.
Right.
And that is something that you can't just hope for it to happen by itself. You have to have deliberate programs like Unified Champion Schools that help give kids the space to get to know each other and become friends. So I'll stop talking for a second because I just get really excited about Unified Champion Schools and what it does. And
Nope.
I get excited to share it with others.
That's fantastic, Andre. You should be excited. You're doing incredible work. And I just want to say a couple of things. I love what you said. When you mentioned that inclusion has been around for over 30 years, but it mainly dealt with adults. I love the fact that it's starting at a younger state, at a younger space with children in school. I spoke with Stacy, I wish it could start with kindergartners, because the sooner this inclusion and the sharing and the learning of both, both typical persons and people with intellectual disabilities, the sooner we start to the inclusion, the better I feel is that the differences will be dispersed, for the simple fact, we all have, attributes. We all have strengths and we all have weaknesses, and we all are supposed to learn from each other. And I love the fact that in these unified schools, that it comes down to everyone working together and respecting each other and having compassion for each other, which sometimes I've seen friends of mine's kids, and I have a daughter 8 years of age who interacts with my son, and it's important for her to learn to respect his abilities. That's really, because the abilities sometimes get overlooked because you've prejudged. And so
exactly.
I'm really happy to hear about unified schools, and tell us more. What can we learn from the unified generation? I'm like more excited, I think, than you are. It's really fantastic too.
Good. That's good. Well, I think you're absolutely right about the young age. We have programming from pre-kindergarten all the way up through university in our school program. So we believe in starting at the young age, because it is much easier to embed an attitude and a behavior about inclusion and acceptance, rather than trying to change behavior later.
And exposure.
Exactly. That's really what it is. It's kind of an immersion learning. If you know somebody who has a difference, then you're going to realize, and I hear this from almost every student that participates. They say, I didn't know what to expect. I didn't think they were like that. I didn't realize I was going to be able to be friends with them. And now they're my best friend. Now I realize that we can do things together, that they love the same kind of music as I do, and they like to dance like me, and we both like pizza, and we both love the same movies. And people learn that they have so much in common, and the differences fall away. And this is the way it is for all differences. We just need to give kids a chance to be together. I learned something from a youth pair my very first month on this job. They told me, it was Samantha and Kelly. Kelly has an intellectual disability, and Samantha said when they were in middle school, they were on a unified sports team, and it was great, and they became really good friends. Then they went to high school, and there was no unified sports at their high school, so they wanted to stay friends. But Kelly's class was in a whole different building. They didn't have lunch at the same time. They weren't in any of the same classes together. They never walked in the halls at the same time. And whenever there was any interaction with the special education classes, there were aides and, a lot of separation going on. It's really hard to make friends. It's really hard to stay friends in that kind of environment. So we do a lot of things that we think are for the good of our children, but they don't help that social inclusion. We can't expect people to know about each other's gifts and strengths if they're never in the same room.
Exactly.
So I think that's what it's really all about. And the things that happen, you guys are parents of people with intellectual disabilities, but the students who do not have a disability are also gaining so much. They are gaining just as much confidence. They are learning empathy. They are learning how to stand up for something they believe in. They are becoming leaders themselves, and they're realizing they have these things in common with people who are different. Those are skills that help you in life. those are not just skills you need to be on a unified team. You need those skills in almost any job that you might have. In almost any area of your life, you have to be able to get along. You learn teamwork. You learn how to express yourself, manage your emotions, all of those social emotional skills that are just so important for all of our kids happen when you create these inclusive environments. And so our kids are becoming changed. They expect this kind of environment. When they see that inclusion is a way of life in their schools, and then they go out in the community, they go to their workplace in their neighborhoods, and they see people with disabilities are being excluded, they will stand up for them because they have learned that inclusion can be a norm. And that's the important thing. Inclusion should be a norm. It shouldn't be a special thing we do on Saturday afternoon. It should be part of everything.
It is the norm. Inclusion is the norm.
Certainly is on this panel.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Andrea, thank you so much. Really, really appreciate all of that wonderful information.
You're welcome.
Really enjoyed hearing all of this. And that brings us to you, Joe. Your
Someone
school
who's making it happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Your school here in New York City is really the model for what we hope all schools in the city will become. Tell us about the City Hawks, because you are you are the source force right in the middle that just brings this together and never allow those kids an inkling of a break. I love that.
Thank you. Basically, the story of the City Hawks is really the title of this discussion, which was the power of sports to impact people with intellectual disabilities and to show them the champion within. I think I don't have it exactly right in front of me. But we pretty much I've been a phys ed teacher at P721M for the past 18 years. And we are a District 75 high school in New York City for students with intellectual disabilities. We have a lot of job training programs, and it's an excellent school, great staff, awesome programs. They really help prepare our students for when they leave school. But one thing that I noticed early on was that we did have some students which, to piggyback off of what Trent said and then Andrea mentioned, we had some students that were a little detached, were a little maybe discouraged, were not achieving academically. One reason for that could have been that their attendance was very poor, like Andrea mentioned, and they were in the dean's office a lot. We had some behavior issues, and I remember I used to always, the gym was right near the dean's office or the lobby. Actually, we don't have a gym, but we have phys ed classes in the lobby, so which was right near the dean's office. So I'd always pass by and see these same students in there, And I remember I got a phone call from a colleague who talked about a Special Olympics New York event that was going to run during the school day for track and field. It was going to be called the 721 Cup. There's a school like ours in each borough of New York City, so it was going to be like a big track and field championship for our students, Special Olympics event. And he's like, you want to put a team together, 10 boys, 10 girls, and bring them out. So I remember I had pretty much hung up the phone, walked by the dean's office and saw all these students in there, a few. And I walked into the dean's office and I told the dean in front of them that, hey, we have a chance to start a track and field team and compete in a Special Olympics event. And it's a field trip, so we'll get out of school for the day, and we'll be able to compete. And I saw the kids kind of looking like maybe they were interested. So I remember looking over at one student in particular. I'm like, you're pretty fast, when you actually show up to gym. So, do you think this is something that you might want to participate in? And he's like, yeah, I could do that. He's like, I can run. It's like, I'm a basketball player. Of course I'm fast. All our kids in New York City are basketball players. But so I said, okay, guys, we can do this, and we'll have to find some more students in the school, but we got to train every day, and I don't really see you guys in class every day, and I know I don't see you in class every day first period. So and they're like, no, we'll come to school to practice. So I said, okay, if you guys meet me at school, we had about 8 weeks, give or take. And I said, if you guys can meet me at school at 7 o'clock every morning, school starts at 8. Meet me at 7 o'clock, 5 days a week for the next 8 weeks, and we'll put a track team together. And you can't miss practice. You have to be in class, which means you can't leave after practice. You actually have to go to first period. And I don't want to see you in here talking to the dean. You can stop by to say hello at lunch, because the dean was a cool guy. You can stop by to say hello, but I expect to see you in class every period. So they said they would. I wasn't really sure what to expect, but I think this was a Friday. So the next Monday, I wake up early, take the Long Island Railroad a little over an hour into the city. And wouldn't you know it, all of those students were there. We only had 8 that were part of it, that were travel trained, that traveled independently. So they met me there. The rest of the kids, we found time to practice during the school day. And they were there every single day for all 8 weeks. It's almost like too good to be true, right? Like something goes 100% improvement like that. And getting them into first period worked because they just finished track practice. Of course, they're going to make it into class. And what we found was that not only did they have track practice, but they were improving in these events that we practiced every day. And they were feeling great about themselves. And they were really starting to feel confident. They didn't know what it was like to be on a track team. They thought like maybe you just run. But now we're talking about different events that they can compete in. And you know what, Philip, you're super fast. So I think a sprint would be perfect for you because you're really quick in a short distance. And then for somebody else like David, I think you're a distance runner, man. There's nobody else here that can run so many laps. So I think we'll train you for that. And I think that just having that success really helped build their self-esteem so that when they did go to first period and second period, I think they almost had a higher expectation of what they could even achieve in the classroom. And to say the least, I know I'll spend a long time on this, but to fast forward through the 8 weeks, we did very well. We won the team trophy. Most of our students medaled at each individual event. And more importantly than that, it kind of sparked an excitement in our school to even come up with a name. We weren't the City Hawks back then. We didn't have any teams. We weren't involved in the PSAL. So then it's like, what's the next step? We got to do basketball, right? So let's get a team name. And then the students voted on the City Hawks idea. They helped design the logo. They made it look a little bit like the Golden State Warriors, but a little bit different. And it really helped us this relationship with Special Olympics New York really helped us to develop an athletics program that is just like an athletics program at any other school. We run 3 to 4 sports per season. And then if other events pop up, we'll add the 5th and we'll train for it. We have about 10 or 11 staff members that are certified Special Olympics coaches at our school that will help out at certain practices or certain weekend events. And it really changed the school and gave our students a sense of belonging and a sense of identity. Like they're the City Hawks. It was no longer, I go to that school or I'm in that program. It was like, I'm on the City Hawks. So we also have a debate team that's the City Hawks debate team. City Hawks Revolutionaries, actually, they are. Awesome debate team, but they're successful too, and they have talents in debate. And we have an awesome culinary program. They're the City Hawks Culinary Masters chefs, and it's all about City Hawks. There's a logo on every single classroom door next to every teacher's name that's the City Hawks logo. And I know we're going to get into unified sports because just when I thought that, we have what every other school has. We have an athletics program. Special Olympics said, your athletes are awesome. And we think that maybe we need to start adding some unified sports where not only now can you have an athletics program like other schools and other students in other schools, but your student athletes are actually going to be playing sports on the same teams with other students from other types of programs from all over. And that's kind of how the City Hawks unified teams got started.
Wow. Well, what difference does playing unified have on your athletes and partners?
It was like we use the word game changer a lot, and I think for unified sports, it's the perfect word. I mean, it kind of took took our students. I was a little apprehensive at first, just not knowing how to approach it. When you I teach adaptive phys ed, so working with students with disabilities only. A lot of times we tend to kind of want to do a lot for our students and help them out, and our intentions are great, and we want to protect them and make sure they're successful. And we had an opportunity to link up with a partner school and to start a unified floor hockey team.
Oh, wow.
And we had 8 students from the City Hawks floor hockey team and 8 students from Ethical Culture Fieldson School, which was our partner school. And we had some practice times lined up, and we were going to form this team. And I noticed, like, the very first practice, it seemed like the Special Olympics athletes from our school kind of went on this side, and the other students went on that side. And people don't always know how to interact when they know that people are different from them. And the game changer that sports itself is, and the sport really does a lot of the work. I need to facilitate a lot as a coach, but the sport really does a work in bringing people together, because once we put the pucks out, and once we put the sticks on, and once the kids put their helmets on, and we started playing, and there weren't really differences, and our City Hawk Special Olympics athletes are good, man. So, our partner athletes, and for those that don't know, we call a partner athlete an athlete without intellectual disabilities. And then the Special Olympics athlete is the athlete with intellectual disabilities. And while a floor hockey game is going on, you always have to have at least 3 Special Olympics athletes on the floor at all times. This way you really have the integration of the partner athlete and the Special Olympics athlete. And that floor hockey team actually was asked in 2017 to represent the United States at Special Olympics World Games in Austria, where they won a bronze medal in Division I, which was the highest skill division. Special Olympics does a great job of separating into divisions based on skill level, and that really gives all athletes a chance to go for gold and compete at their level and really push themselves, and we actually got it. We barely made it into Division I, and we were looking at the size of the Russian team and how well they played, and we're like, uh-oh, we're in Division I. But, I remember telling the students before, just to get back to the partner and athlete distinction, I told our student athletes, we had a big team meeting with families right before we left Austria. And I said, guys, we have to have 3 athletes and 3 partners on the floor at all times, right? So, we have to work together, right? I said, we're going against the best teams in the world, and there is no way we can win if we do that. There's no way we can get a medal if we do that. We can't send out 3 and 3. We have to send out 6 players from Team USA. That's it. The labels, the differences are kind of gone now. We've been practicing. You're just one team, and I'll figure out who's going to play what positions, and I'm going to put everybody in a chance to be successful. And it worked out. I mean, their bronze medal game against China, from speaking to spectators and media, ESPN covered it, and officials and referees and the other coaches, everybody gave probably the biggest compliment we could have, in that, wow, what a hockey team. They played so well together. Nobody said, wow, Alex passed the ball to Christian, and we actually let Christian take a shot. The Special Olympics athlete really actually scored a goal. It wasn't about that. You couldn't even tell who was who, right? Because there's a cage over that comes over their face. So it's like the perfect sport for unified, I think. To see a team go out and they're passing and they play so fluid together. Christian got the puck because his teammate trusted him that he would have a good chance of scoring the goal. And he got into position to take that shot on his own because he knew what to do, because he practiced with those teammates. So, the competitive model of unified sports, which that particular team really aspires to do, is put athletes of similar skill levels on that same team. And everybody's got a role. Everybody participates. Our goaltender is actually a Special Olympics athlete. but he got that position because he was the best goalie on the team. So everybody said, no, Malik's got to play goalie. Like, he's just awesome. And it takes a special person to play goalie because it's a pretty stressful position. But he
I love your passion. I just love
Thanks.
your
Sorry,
passion.
I feel like I'm going on and on and on.
No, but it's wonderful. I just had to say that I love your passion. Tell us, what can we learn? We who are tuning into this now, what can we learn about unified generation?
The unified generation, I think we can learn that they probably have the answers that we need. If you're watching pretty much any channel on TV, right? They have shown me, the athletes that I've seen in all the different competitions and even international competitions, which means that other countries are also doing this. We shared, I go off on tangents a lot.
It's okay.
We shared a hotel with Israel and Syria and so many different countries, and we were all just hanging out in the lobby together, so it's really interesting. But the unified, to get back to your question, I'm sorry, unified generation, they show that not only is there a level of acceptance, that I really think that the inclusion is easy to do, because I think the Special Olympics athlete has so much to offer that it's really an inclusive inclusion. I feel like our partner athletes, they want to be part of what the City Hawks has to offer also. They're becoming friends with our Special Olympics athletes who are very good athletes, and they're training hard, and they're the drive. And I remember speaking with a bunch of prospective partner athletes about our basketball program, and I'm like, come to practice, but come to play, because our Special Olympics athletes, they'll eat you alive if you're not ready for it, especially at basketball. Like, you got to come and bring it. And they saw it right away, and I think that Special Olympics athletes have the ability to really see people for who they are. And I think that is something that the partner athletes also learn. And I think that the unified generation is going to change a lot. I mean, high school students are the future leaders of New York City, right? They're going to be the future policymakers. So when we talk about individuals with intellectual disabilities and opportunities that they still need, or they're still should be entitled to, this unified generation are going to be the leaders that are going to be able to make those policies. This unified generation, there's going to be people that participated in unified sports teams that are going to be in positions at companies to hire people. And they might be more willing to hire somebody with an intellectual disability. Maybe, this person, look at this resume, person has Down syndrome. I have a friend that has Down syndrome. And we played on a unified bowling team back in high school, So maybe they're going to be more open to even providing job opportunities for people with intellectual disabilities.
Awesome. That's
yeah, I don't know if I think I answered that right.
I think it's great, Grace. I would just add really quick that, like, Joe Stewart and the City Hawks and everything we want out of Unified, and it's growing so much, and we're doing it. With Joe, with the City Hawks, that whole story, we know this works. So 100% success rate. So there's no obstacle that anyone can put ahead of us. Joe did it at the City Hawks. It could be done at every single school. It should be done at every single school. And I think to add that about the resume, I tell corporations all the time, you see Unified on your applicant's resume, you want to hire that person. That is a good person that understands all of this inclusion and all of this importance of diversity, right now, and that is the person that you should hire. So I think the City Hawks inspire us all, but also motivate us, because there's no excuse. Everybody needs to have the City Hawks.
I agree. Well said. And on that note, does anyone have any more questions for our panelists here? Are there any more questions? I think this is
I don't have a question. I just want to say how wonderful Joe's work is, and he described so perfectly how a team comes together and how it works. And I just want to applaud you, Joe. You sound like you deserve to be Coach of the Year for sure.
Yes.
Yeah, isn't he? I mean, I would just add that to that, Grace. I think I have, like, my face hurts from smiling, and I think
me too.
I've admired all of you. And meeting Jenny today, I would show on my notes, I've You're quotable. I've written things down. I've learned from you. You
As long as
inspire
I don't get made into a
me.
meme,
You
we're
are
good.
going to be. You're an incredible success already, and I'm so thankful.
Yay,
that
Jenny.
Thank you. I want to say that the amount of passion on this panel, oh my gosh, it's amazing just to see how passionate you all are about working with sports and adaptive sports. And it really, it's like I have so much passion, and then to see 5 other people with just as much, if not even more, I wish I had unified sports when I was in high school. I totally would have been there, done
Well,
that.
we're going to recruit you. You can be a unified
Yes.
player.
Yes.
This is the dream team right here. You're all
Yeah.
fabulous. Thank you so much.
So I just want to say thank you so much, because this has been just fantastic. And to really see how what everybody is doing. And also Trent, like, it's so cool to see that, like, we have the same sort of like perspective on things. And it's like we come from 2 kind of different worlds, Special Olympics and Paralympics, and I'm sure if we had an Olympian on this call, they would all come together and say, yeah, this is what we go through. Like, we train hard, we work hard, we don't think that we can get there, and then somehow it happens. And so it's so cool to just make that connection and really be able to chat with you a little bit.
Fantastic. I just think this whole panel has been absolutely incredible. Such an example for the world. And I feel this incredible passion as you do, Jenny. And this is what's coming to the world, and they just better get ready for it, because this is it. It's the time. It's your time. It's our time. It's their time. It's everyone's time to come together and really create this world that was meant to be anyway. Okay, this is exactly what it was meant to be. So I'm so sorry that we're out of time, but I want to thank you all for putting this incredible panel.
Thank you. Love you all.
Disability Unite for getting us all together. Please visit our website at specialolympicsny.org to learn more. Stacy, Trent, Andrea, Jenny, Joe, moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Grace. Thank you, everybody.
Bye, Trent.
Bye.
Have a good evening.
Yes, yes. Thank you, Grace. This is the time for all of us to come together, to unite, to create a world of inclusion and access for all. I'm so happy and so honored that you all could join us. Grace, Stacy, Jenny, Trent, Joe, Andrea, thank you all so much. This was really cool. I'm not an athlete on your level, but I think we can all be gold medalists in the ways that really matter: teamwork, unity, passion to do good, and like you said, Grace, I mean, I really can't say it better: create the world that is meant to be. Now, our next panel is in an area that I could use some tips on: fashion. I'm very excited to learn something new from our next panelists, Mindy Shire and Gary Scheinbaum, as they discuss adaptive clothing in the fashion industry. Over to you, Mindy.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's panel for Disability Unite. We are so incredibly honored to be here and a part of the 30th anniversary of the ADA. My name is Mindy Shire, and I am the CEO of Runway of Dreams Foundation and Gamut Management. I am actually a former fashion designer, mom of a child with a disability. His name is Oliver. He has a rare form of muscular dystrophy. And I learned early on that he was really going to struggle with everyday tasks, one of which is the very thing that I love more than anything: dressing myself, wearing this amazing hat, and being in front of all of you today. But that actually was a daily struggle for Oliver. And I realized that I could take my background and have this small goal of changing the fashion industry to be inclusive of people with disabilities. I started on my journey in 2013, embedded myself into the population by doing extensive research and trying to figure out the commonalities between clothing challenges and people with disabilities, and started developing modifications that could be implemented into mainstream clothes so that Oliver and the 1 billion people on our planet who have a disability can wear mainstream clothing like everyone else gets to do. Through my journey, I had the unbelievable honor and pleasure of being connected to the man that we have on our panel today, Gary Scheinbaum, CEO of Tommy Hilfiger's The Americas. Gary and I connected back in 2015 when I pitched my concept, my idea of modified mainstream clothing for people with disability. And one of our favorite stories is within 5 minutes of our meeting, Gary slams his hands on the table and says, "We're in." And that really says it all about the brand, the man, the mission of how Tommy Adaptive came to be. And it is my absolute honor to have Gary on our panel today. We are doing a one-on-one discussion, very conversational, so that you can all understand how Tommy Adaptive was created and the man behind the whole movement with me. Gary, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Mindy. It's a pleasure to be here with you as always.
I absolutely love seeing you. And I would love to start out first by if you could just share with everybody a little bit about your professional journey in the fashion industry.
Okay, I'll try and be brief. So I started many years ago in Macy's executive training program, spent 8 years at Macy's in a number of different jobs, store line jobs, buying jobs, all different types of things. Got a lot of great experience. I then spent a year actually out on the West Coast for a company that no longer exists, running a $200 million junior division for Mervyn's, who was part of Dayton Hudson. I came back, became the general manager of B. Altman's, also no longer around, just shows you what's going on in our industry. I was the store manager of their flagship store in Manhattan. I then went to Polo Ralph Lauren as managing director of the Mansion and spent about a year and a half at Ralph, at which point I left to go to J. Crew and became president of the new retail business at J. Crew, coming off of their catalog business, and spent about 5 years there. And then I had a couple other little things here and there that I did, and eventually ended up at Tommy, where I've been for about 25 years in a number of different positions, and have had a great career here, and have loved every minute of it.
Amazing. So, and you have obviously an incredibly seasoned career and have been embedded in the fashion industry for most of your professional life, as was I. And one of the things that still to this day is amazing to me, that prior to our engagement and us partnering to create a mainstream adaptive version of the Tommy collection, why do you think that adaptive wasn't even a word that anybody, even myself included, until Oliver came into my life? I'm curious, from your perspective and your expertise, why do you think that was?
I think it's mostly has to do with a lack of awareness. I mean, I had no idea that there was such a void in the industry and in the fashion world of not being educated to or aware that there are one in four people who have disabilities. And obviously there's many different types of disabilities, so it's quite complex, from cognitive to physical, limb differences, people seated. So when you're thinking about coming up with solutions, it's complicated. It's not easy, as you know, because you've been very active participant in helping us develop the modifications. So, but what we saw right away with you, Mindy, was, oh my God, there really isn't an awareness around it. In fact, we know that when it comes to kind of race, gender, and sexuality, these are the areas where people are, where things are centered around those as it relates to minorities. But the biggest minority we have, people with disabilities, typically rarely included people with disabilities, right? They weren't included in this kind of support. So, there was no language, there was no reference point. I remember we were trying to figure out, is adaptive the right word? We want to be very thoughtful. And what we did is every step of the way, the learnings came from working with the community, listening to the community, doing focus groups, and really working closely on co-creation around ways to come up with these adaptations and modifications. But there was no awareness around it. And what we agreed to was, we're going to lead a movement, and we're really going to make a difference because it is so needed. And we all know that every one of us get up every day with many options in our closets on what to wear. We can express ourselves. We have independence, self-esteem on how we do it. But this community of people with disabilities didn't have those options. And so it was very clear to us that it was a huge white space, that it was a huge need in our society, and that we together really had an opportunity to make a difference. And that's really the journey we've been on for now a number of years.
Absolutely. And one thing I want to underscore, because I think it's really important for the audience to understand this, that there is no end to our learning, right? All the focus groups that you continue to do, that I continue to learn from the population, is what is making Tommy Adaptive so successful, is that it's a constant feedback from the population, working with you guys directly, the design team and all the teams at Tommy, to always make it better and come up with new technologies and new ideas. And I think that's really important to highlight, that is something very important to the team, I believe.
It really is. Look, the team, this is a passion project. I have to say, and on taking this on, it has created an incredible level of excitement and loyalty from our associates, because they want to make a difference. We're not, at Tommy Hilfiger, we've never been only about selling clothes and only being commercial. It's always been about inclusion and diversity from our very beginning. And so for us, this is very natural to us to want to take something like this on. And of course, Tommy, the man, was very excited when we brought him into it. He said, "Oh, we have to do it." He couldn't believe no one else had done it. And so, yeah, that's the mindset. And the amount of potential is incredible, because in working with people, when you listen to them and they tell you things like, I never saw myself in a magazine. I never saw myself in a movie or on a commercial. Now, of course, we're seeing some of this changing slowly but surely over the last several years, but such a long way to go, as we know. And what we also saw was that many other companies, when they saw what we were doing, a number of them, as you know, because you've worked with many companies to inspire them to join the movement with us, but many just didn't even know anything about it. And when they start to see the numbers, I mean, one of the big numbers from like Coherent Market Insights from a Vogue Business magazine, we saw an article that talked about it as a $400 billion opportunity by 2026 because of this growing population and growing need. Now, regardless of what those numbers are, they're big and the opportunity is there, but it's a matter of how we unlock it, how we work together, how we educate everybody to what the opportunities are and what the need is.
Absolutely. Yeah. So aside of, the actual numbers and the data and everything that we read and uncovered together, was there a moment that, personally that you had in the beginning of this journey where you said, holy cow, we are changing people's lives while they live it?
Yeah. There's been a number of those moments and they are emotional. It did start with your story about Oliver. I got to say that hit me because, I have 3 children and, what's more important to us, than their health and their well-being, and that they can live the best lives possible and have great experiences. So when I heard that story, and then Mindy, I'll never forget, we agreed to do our first collection. It was just going to be kids in the beginning. And, I wasn't sure as a business guy how much we could handle and how my company was going to get behind it from PVH point of view. Fortunately, they're very like-minded and doing the right thing. But you called me one day. I was in the middle of a very busy day, and you said, "Gary, you might want to come up to the studio. We're doing a fashion shoot with the kids and their families are here, and take a look." And I said, "Oh my God." And I quickly rejuggled my schedule, came running up to the studio. And that was life-changing because I saw you working with the parents and the kids, these kids for the first time being able to button and unbutton clothes and put things on more independently, seeing the smiles on their face and the look in their eyes. And then the parents' appreciation was game-changing. And so ever since then, it then evolved to you and I talking about, let's turn this into a much bigger men's, women's, kids' accessories business. Let's do it, and turn it into a for-profit business model, because that's what it would take to get the resources to really make a big difference and drive big change and lead a movement. And that's what we agreed to, and we've done. And it's been an incredible journey, rolling out now men's and women's and all the other categories so much more work to do, but we've made a lot of progress and we've changed a lot of people's lives. We see that 91% of people coming onto Tommy.com, where we one of the places we sell Adaptive, are new to the brand. And then, of course, those people also shop the brand in other ways. So when we're talking to other brands about the potential, it's amazing the new customer acquisition and the goodwill you can get with customers when you do the right thing and you do it for them and with them. So that's been great for us. The other amazing stat is 35% of people call our customer service department to say thank you. I mean, they say thank you. And it's like, that's not typical for, a customer service department. So all these kinds of good things happening behind it. And every step of the way, when I meet people and I see how it's affecting them and their caregiver or their family, certainly those that have, it's very much, it motivates all of us to want to do more.
I couldn't agree more. And I'm curious if there was maybe something internal in the Tommy world that have you seen, maybe more employees that have said, this is so important to me. I have a son, I have a parent, because I don't know if we, publicly talk enough about how much this affects internal businesses as well as the external, because you are how many employees at Tommy? Thousands,
well, just
probably.
Thousands, many thousands. So it's really something. I will say that whenever we bring in new hires or interns or we're hiring people for new jobs, they all ask about, what are you doing with Adaptive? We love that you're doing it. So from a working for companies, we all want to be a great place to work, right? As an employer of many people. And from a culture point of view, this mindset around inclusion and diversity, the mindset around doing the right thing and making a positive difference in people's lives and how you treat people. This creates an incredibly good vibe in the company. And in fact, it's become one of the big pillars of our entire roadmap to inclusion and diversity and sustainability. This adaptive piece is one of the key pillars within it for our whole company in terms of what we want to stand for as we move forward. So it's a big impact on people internally, externally, across the board, all really positive.
It's amazing. And I know because I've personally witnessed it both internally and externally through the Tommy team and the influence that it's had on the population of people with disabilities. One of my favorite things, and I think you're a fan of it as well, is the notion of a vision board. And really putting your hopes and dreams and wishes out there, whether it's on a physical board or something that you hold in your heart. And this is something that I have, led to be my road, what I want to accomplish in this lifetime. As it relates to Tommy Adaptive, what if we got to look onto Gary's vision board, what would we see?
Well, the first thing was really, we wanted to lead a movement and inspire other organizations, other companies to see that through our example, where we set very high standards on our innovations, our modifications, on the quality of what we're doing, on the fact that it's extremely responsive to those people that live this every single day, that approach. On the vision board, it was, how can we continue to get more and more companies behind this? So this becomes just a normal way of fashion companies doing business, just another segment of what they do to offer up to our many consumers out in the world an opportunity to wear our clothes and to make it really where they can have self-esteem and independence in dressing and have fashion in their lives in a way that they otherwise just wouldn't. And so while we're one brand trying to make a big difference, we need many others to follow. So that's key to me. That will be a big sign of success, is how many other organizations and companies get behind it. We want to partner with any organization that wants to work with and for this community. That's on the board, and we're looking at a lot of ways to do that. The key is really giving the community the seat at the table, right? Mm-hmm. That's on the board. But the other thing that we always said, Mindy, was started with kids, went into all categories of business, and we've been expanding a lot there, but then globally. What could this mean? And here we were, this little discussion happening here. And now I want to let you know that in the last 6 weeks, we've launched in Japan, Europe, and Australia. The results have been great, far exceeding our expectations. The customer feedback is great. And we're just seeing, positive feedback from also media and influencers all around it in these markets. So it's really the tip of the iceberg, but the fact that we are going global and that the reactions have already been very good and the sell-throughs are good is exciting to see. And that was definitely, to take this global was a big part of the vision too.
Absolutely. Now, there's two things I want to pull out from what you just said. The first one is the fact that you now have Tommy Adaptive has a global presence in less than 4 years is so unbelievable. The amount of traction and the footprint that this has had from our very first discussion, I mean, absolutely blows my mind. I would imagine that it does for you too, but I think that's something that I really want everybody to understand, that typically in the industry, things don't generally move this fast. And it is not only a testament to the brand Tommy Hilfiger, but it is also a testament to the fact that there is a market that needs this, wants it, that are consumers that haven't, prior to our partnership, haven't been serviced. And I think that's so important to really kind of underscore how enormous this is. And really the second part about this is that you never treated this as an initiative. It was always felt that this was a business opportunity. And generally, people with disabilities tend to fall into the nonprofit world. It's a good thing to do. It feels right, And that was one of the things that I respected and appreciated so much about our partnership, was that you didn't view people with disabilities as a poor them. You viewed them as consumers. You viewed them as people first, who deserve to have all the same products as everyone else. And when everybody goes to Tommy.com to check this out, because I know you're all going to want to, you are going to see that it is just a category, right? It's with Tommy jeans, it's with the collection. It is viewed as just a category. And I think that is such an important testament to the belief that you as a company, as a brand, believe in this population as consumers and people.
Absolutely. And what we've seen is wherever we educate people to what it is and what it can mean, and that it can really service a whole new market share, everybody wants a piece of it. And that was nice because we didn't push this to Japan, Europe, Australia. They saw what we were doing and they pulled it in. They said, we want to do this. We have a need for this. Our market research shows us the same things you've been saying. So, and it's humanity. I mean, on a very fundamental level, this is about people doing the right thing because we can. And I just feel like there's so much more we can all do and so many other companies can get on board. I have to qualify by saying it's not easy. It takes investment in time, resources, to create awareness around it, the marketing. Things like this are great because hopefully more people are hearing what we're saying and what we're trying to do here, and we'll take a closer look and figure out ways to get involved with us. But we have a lot of work to do here, and it really takes a lot of time to build it. And so we're hoping, other companies will understand that as well.
But that even in and of itself, from a classic, fashion industry perspective, you generally don't love to share. If you're doing something innovative, you want it to very much be about the brand that you are working with. So the very fact that you are encouraging other brands to not only join you in the mission of including adaptive into their portfolios, but you're welcoming them to work with you. So I definitely want everybody listening and watching to understand that this is generally not how it works. And that's how important it is. And it is becoming to the industry that this is all for one and one for all, that the industry wants to, that you are encouraging other brands to join you. You are doing this side by side with the population to, make sure that you're continually doing it better, changing, fixing. I mean, this is a population that survives on hacks in a world that was not developed for them. And their creativity and what they have developed is something we can all learn from. And I think that's really another testament so much to what you are doing as a brand to encourage other brands to join you.
Very true. And that's, for me, that's what success looks like. Not that we dominate this space, but that we help lead as many other brands into it to service this very underserved population and community of people who deserve it every step of the way and should have that ability to dress in the same ways we all do and have those options and have that ability to, you know, have the modifications that they can actually dress themselves or make it much easier. So, you know, it's something we're all very passionate about and very excited about, and I hope others will continue to come on board with us.
I believe they will and are. I mean, just the fact
we're starting to see it.
Other brands that are starting it is really because of seeing what Tommy Hilfiger is doing. So now I want to ask you just a couple of fun questions because I think everybody really needs to know the man, but the CEO title. So here's some really important facts that everybody needs to know. Gary, chocolate or vanilla?
Chocolate.
Beach or mountains?
A dead heat. It's a tie. I love to ski and I love beach and all the warm weather activities and water. So I love both equally.
All right, so we're outdoors.
Yes, outdoors.
Outdoors or indoors?
Outdoors.
Everybody wants to be outdoors right now.
Yes.
What is your all-time favorite movie?
Oh my God. You know, one that really hit me, I remember as a kid, I didn't want to go. I remember when my parents were taking me, The Sound of Music, because I was like, The Sound of Music, what's that? But one of my all-time favorites, that, you know, I love E.T. I mean, feel good, you know, just great stories. Yeah.
First concert you ever went to?
Poco at Scarsdale High School. The group Poco. I was, you know, I was like in 7th grade, and they played at the high school in my community. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I love it. And one fun fact about yourself that people would be like, oh, wow, you practice yoga, right?
Yes, I love yoga, love anything that is kind of helping my mental health and well-being. So yoga is definitely one of my favorite things to do, and I do it almost every day.
Yeah, so there you go.
That's a fun fact.
Wonderfully fun fact.
That's a good one.
So I just want to take a couple minutes to close our discussion. And first of all, thank you again so much for joining us. I think this is incredible. Anniversary of the ADA, and it is an absolute honor. Again, thank you so much, Disability Unite, for having us and bringing this important topic to life. So I know for my work personally and the work that we're doing together with Runway Dreams and now the new company, Gamut Management, which is a talent management company for people with disabilities, to be able to rebrand who people with disabilities are in the public eye. Those are some of my goals, to be able to have people with disabilities not only inspiring products and helping companies work with them to create products, but also so that visually we are seeing people with disabilities in our everyday life, whether that's a commercial, a television show, on a runway, in focus groups, whatever the case may be. And that's really at the forefront of my journey, and to be able to obviously do more incredible work with the Tommy team and other brands. In closing, what do you hope that we can see in the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, I think it comes back to, I would just love to see us continue to motivate, inspire, educate companies, and certainly within the fashion industry, but also other industries, to take notice that there is this very big underserved population as it relates to certainly fashion, as it relates to employment, and a number of other areas where this community has been overlooked. And I feel like what it would excite me the most is to get more and more collective support behind this, to keep innovating, keep coming up with new ways to make a difference, to make people's lives better in this space, which we're very passionate about. And I think for me, that's the vision. If we can get more and more people behind it, more and more awareness, more education, and then action, so that we can really make a difference in people's lives. And it includes the employment piece for sure, which I know you're very involved with and I feel strongly about as well. So that holistic view of having a significant positive change for the better in people with disabilities' lives is really what I'm committed to. And I hope we together can continue to make the kind of strides we're making and even do more. Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. And to think how far we've come in less than 4 years, can you imagine where we're going to go?
I know. I'm very excited. I think it's the very beginning, really, still. So looking forward to it. It's a lifelong journey that I'm excited to stay in.
I'm right there with you, by your side. And I highly, highly encourage everybody, please go to Tommy.com, look at the Tommy Adaptive Collection. It is amazing. Share it, talk about it, because as a community, we have to support brands that are in this with us. And the more support that we can give, the more brands that will want to be a part of this, and for the right reasons. So let's do our part. Thank you again, Gary. It's always wonderful to see you, and I'm so grateful to be on this journey with you.
Thank you too, Mindy. Really appreciate you having me on. Thank you so much. Have a great one.
You too.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
See you.
Wow, I'm glad I stuck around. I missed some Super Smash Bros, but that was such a great conversation. Mindy, Gary, I'm right there with you. This is just the tip of the iceberg. There's so much we all can do. And Mindy, like you said, by supporting each other and doing this together, we can spread awareness and bring others into the fold to further access and inclusion as a movement that connects the world. Wow, it doesn't feel like 4 hours have passed. That really flew by. I want to keep going, but we have a schedule. So this concludes the main event of the first ever Disability Unite Festival. I had an amazing time, and I hope you did too, but it's not over yet. I'm going to grab something to eat now with Bree, the love of my life. But I will see you all back here for the after party at 7 p.m. Eastern. Again, 7 p.m. Eastern. That's 4 p.m. for my buddy Max in California, and 5 p.m. for the gang in the Midwest. And rest up, because we have another 4 hours of fun planned with some incredible music from DJs and musicians that I know you'll love. But for now, thank you. Thank you to our panelists. Thank you to our moderators. And a big thank you to you. Yes, I'm talking to you, our community. Thank you for joining us in celebrating Disability Pride. Don't forget to check us out on social media at Disability Unite and help to unite us all. So long.